Okie dokie. We are in the 90s, Nate. I don't know when exactly this episode's actually going to drop, but this is in the 90s, which means we're getting closer to the hundreds, which is triple digits. I didn't know if we were going to get to the double digits when we first started
Right.
this, when we first started this crap, man. But I'm having so much fun with it. Nate, anybody listening, welcome to Tackling Tacos, a fishing podcast. My friend, how are you in Iowa? How's the weather? How's life?
The weather has been pretty good
Yeah,
up until today, tomorrow. It's got chilly today, and I think we're supposed
yeah.
to get some freezing rain and stuff tonight, tomorrow. But other than that, man, it's been good. We don't have much for snow on the water or snow on the ground. The water
Well,
is pretty soft. Not much for ice on the river.
yeah.
It's been all right. Hopefully, spring shows up quicker than that groundhog
I
says
will
it's
say,
going
yeah,
to.
Punxsutawney Phil, boy, he
Right.
said 6 more weeks. And can I just say, side note, I love that movie, Groundhog Day. I freaking love that movie. It's so dope and so predictable and cheesy and fun. But like Bill Murray might just be like the closest thing we have to like an actual like treasure, like a national treasure of a human being.
Right.
Like that dude is so funny and like I don't know, his facial expression. He's still killing it now. Like one of my like super hidden gem movies that I really like is called The Dead Don't Die. It's not that great of a movie. It's like this zombie movie, but he like holds it down. He's just so freaking funny in it. But I love Groundhog Day, man. That's one of my jams for sure. And actually, a little nugget for anybody who gives a rat's behind about it. My dad, that movie was filmed in Woodstock, Illinois, which is outside of Rockford a little bit. And that scene where they drive that C10, which is kind of a heartbreak off that cliff, where he has the groundhog with him.
Right.
That quarry right there is like a half a block from where I used to live in Rockford. But anyway, my dad, who used to be like a salesman guy in the Rockford area, had a bunch of clients in Woodstock, Illinois. And like one day he went there to like do sales, like restaurant stuff, like silverware and I don't know, whatever else the crap he sold. And he like bumped into Bill Murray at like one of the diners there, like on lunch. And like he didn't really like talk to him or anything, but he like literally like bumped into him in the store. I was like, whoa. It's like that's kind of dope. But
Yeah.
and then he
That
would tell
is.
me, so in that scene where Bill Murray steals the groundhog and like peels out in that old Chevy, and the tires smoke all over, he was there when they filmed that, like he was watching. And apparently before they hit action, they poured bleach on the tires. And then when you floor it, that's what makes them smoke up real
Makes it
good.
smoke more. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So that's kind of there you go. Anybody who wants to like peel out of their next derb, put some bleach on your tires on your truck or maybe on your trailer, let it rip. But anyway, so this is episode 90 something. And just recently we did an episode. I kind of held it down solo. We did an episode called Everything I Know About Jerk Baits. And it actually went okay. I had fun with it, sort of had notes, sort of had a format, talking about like some of my favorite jerk baits, how I use jerk baits, how I learned about them, the history of them with a little help from the homie Ken Duke. Showed some of them on camera, and that actually got a decent engagement. It got like 6 or 7 listens, which is like 3 or 4 more than most of our podcasts.
Right.
And then we've been wanting to have the homie Rich from Hellabass, which if you don't listen to the Hellabass podcast, you're legitimately not even like giving the dude like a fake, like, I don't know, hooray, but like legitimately, if you bass fish and you don't listen to the Hellabass podcast or watch it on YouTube, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's super
No
funny,
doubt.
it's engaging, it's super honest. He engages with the people while it's live. He has great guests on, and it's about as unfiltered as you can get. But we've been wanting to have him back on the podcast, and I thought it'd be dope to talk to him everything Hellabass knows about jigs. So tonight we're going to connect with him on all his vast knowledge of jigs, which he told me in a text message. It'll be like a super short show. And I was like, shut up, dude. Get out of here. I've listened to him enough talk about jigs, and I'm pretty sure he's pretty familiar. And I think it should be really interesting to hear what he has to say. Before we jumped on, Nate, we talked briefly about ice fishing. Have you ever ice fished? I don't know if we ever even talked about ice fishing. Do you like ice fishing? Is it the worst? Where you stand on that, dude?
I have ice fished a total of, I want to say it's less than 3 times, maybe twice, maybe 3 times,
And that
twice
because you
for
just
sure.
don't want to, or like
S- Solely because I do not like it.
it's just
It,
not
I,
that like in my
it's
brain,
really
it's like
not.
it's fishing during the winter. Like you ain't got nothing else to do. You
Yeah.
can't go open water. You might as well ice fish, but it's not like fishing. It's not.
No. No, it's not. It's not at all like fishing. I
Yeah.
mean, it is, but it isn't. Like the whole like sitting. I don't, and it's weird because to me, I kind of compare it to like catfishing, which I grew up doing. Like you sit in one spot, you throw a bait out, and you just
Yeah, dude. And you just hope to God.
hang out and wait for them. Yeah, but
Yeah.
something about the little hole and like hoping there's a fish down there somewhere. Like
Yeah.
I can't do it. The ice movement, the crack, the noise that sketches me out. I'll be honest with you.
Especially when you
I,
get a good when you
oh
hear the water
yeah,
come up in the crack, it's a little
yeah,
disconcerting.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. But I kind of went all in. Like I went one time and it really wasn't that bad. Caught a couple little fish, which
Yeah.
is standard ice fishing stuff.
Yeah.
I bought a hand auger. A buddy of mine, Chris Smith, handed me off a rod of his.
Okay.
Um, I bought like a flip up clam ice hut. Like I mean,
Daggum. I don't think I
I
even knew
had
this. Okay.
yeah. So I had
Yeah.
the stuff to do it, and then I went a second time. I believe it was with Chris also, and you know what? I just was like, nah, this is not it.
You're like, dang it,
I
why'd I spend
sold
all this money?
I never even used it. I
Yeah.
sold the hand auger, I sold
Yeah.
the little flip up ice
Now, when you
hut,
say hand
I
dog, are you
sold
talking about
everything. Yeah.
or like, oh yeah, yeah, like
Yeah. Yeah.
manual? Oof, yeah, no, that ain't
Yeah.
it. That's not it.
Laser, yeah, hand crank auger, whatever it
Especially if you're
is.
up here, like where I'm at, where Rich is at, Minnesota, Wisconsin, you do that. I mean,
Right.
you're talking that's
Yeah,
a
17 inches of
long
ice.
minute. Yeah, long. Like it was probably I went out. The reason I was asking is I went out with the kiddos, our oldest boy Dom, and then my nephew Noah on Sunday. And I mean, even I have an Ion 8-inch. Ion's like a battery powered one. They're super legit. And even with that, it was like for the longest time. Like I had each one of the boys try
Right.
and drill a hole, and they're like, "Do I keep going?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's no water up yet." And they're like, "Good Lord." So I mean, you do that with a hand auger, boy, you are wore out, triceps just all
Yeah.
swole, whack,
Yeah, no
looking like
doubt.
Ronnie Coleman or something, but on accident maybe. But yeah, man, I don't know, like no diss to anybody who's in love with it. Like our homie Eric from working class, he loves ice fishing. Like our buddy we used to work with, Juan. Like, does he doesn't still work there, does he?
Yeah.
Does he still work? He does.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Word.
Yep.
Yeah, super
Still
good,
works there.
dude.
I've
Juan, shout out Juan Vasquez.
yeah.
He got
Yeah,
us into
shout
ice
out.
fishing, and I don't know. I think part of it too is that he sort of ruined it for Lola and I because he took us to a pond that I actually already didn't realize until we got there that it was a pond I already have permission to fish, like open water. Chris and his dad Dave, who own it in Illinois, and so there it's like one after the other, whether it's
Right.
cold, warm, thick ice, early season, doesn't matter. You can set up with the flasher and catch big chunky, like pound, up to pound and a half crappies all day long. And that's dope because that's a taco. You know what I'm saying? Literally. Like
Yeah,
those
no
come through the
doubt.
water and it's like you're just waiting to throw those things in a corn shell or a whatever. And but then when you move to Wisconsin, you fish public waters and it's like one of those every 45 minutes. It's like this is not it.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
all right, so that's
I
it.
no,
I
I
I don't
agree.
got to sit here and trash ice fishing anymore. I just randomly was thinking about it because we went. The boys were pumped. We fished for probably not super long, 3.5 hours maybe, and we caught 3 perch totaling maybe 15 inches. I mean, like I'll add them all up. You know what I'm saying? These little boys were like maybe, and they were like, "We're gonna keep those. We're gonna make tacos." And I'm like, "That's not even enough for like, like one of those 7-Eleven like tornadoes or whatever you call it, tornadoes, them little twisty like
Right.
hot dog roller things. Like there is no meat here to be had." But anywho, so Nate, break us off with the sponsors. Let's bring Rich in. Let's talk jigs. Let's get after it.
Yeah, we'll hit it quick. Gotta thank the presenting sponsor, Grizzly Coolers, and all things Grizzly.
Yeah.
We got the cups, we got the water bottles, we do it all Grizzly. GrizzlyCoolers.com, code WCB for 15% off. Giltech and Hook and Arrow Supply, all the dope Giltech products, everything like just I mean, we talk about it on a weekly basis. Everything Giltech is phenomenal. And if you haven't tried it, go check it out.
Yep.
Currently, Hook and Arrow Supply, co.com, I believe it is.
HookandArrowSupply.com.
HookandArrowSupply.com. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
confusing because the company is Hook and Arrow Supply Co., but the website is
right.
hookandarrowsupply.com. But the one thing about Giltech stuff is we've pushed it on a lot of folks, like even just homies fishing derbies and whatever. And I haven't really had anybody who I've either A, given stuff to, or B, they've gone on the website and bought stuff. I haven't had anybody come back and be like, yeah, those swim jigs aren't really it. Like they're really legit swim jigs, like really, really legit. And just a side note, I posted something on like a story or something recently on our social, which is at Tackle and Tacos. I honestly don't know why, unless I guess maybe in a lot of current or something. I've never really cared about, and I have a whole bunch of them, but I never throw heavier than a 1/4 ounce swim jig. Do you ever throw anything bigger than a 1/4 ounce swim jig, Nate?
I almost never throw a 1/4 ounce swim jig.
Really?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
F,
Yeah,
dude.
it's almost always a 3/8 ounce swim jig.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Because I have some
I
3/8 and
will.
I have some halves, and I never, ever, ever. And it was even before we were on Giltech. Like if I was throwing,
Yeah.
like the what's the one, the Divine or whatever, that 6th Sense one. It's pretty
6
affordable.
cents.
It's pretty
Yeah.
dope. The Super K stuff, I'm always throwing 1/4 ounce. I don't know, but
Yeah.
interesting. But anyway, anybody we've given jigs to, swim jigs or net heads, everybody's been pumped on them. Everybody's been impressed by them. Nobody's been like, oh, they're kind of crappy. I haven't heard that, not one person.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a way to tell too, is like you give a couple jigs to somebody
Mm-hmm.
and then they just don't say anything and you kind of get that feeling like, maybe they didn't like them.
Yeah.
Everybody that I've talked to that's fished them or given stuff to is the same as you. They've come back and said, "Hey, yo, these are dope. These are
and
these
ordered
these
some and
exactly.
yeah,
They
like
track
the
true.
LaFonts.
They
That's a
get
perfect
bit. Yeah,
example. We gave them like 3, and I think he's ordered, I don't know, a dozen or more off the website now because he loves them. They're dope. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
sure. So, I think next up is of course Leupold Optics and their performance eyewear.
Yeah,
All
the best.
things Leupold. Am I getting it right? Is it Leupold or is it still Leopold?
It's always been Leupold. You just say Leopold for some
Leupold.
reason. I lost those. My gold lens Becknaras, which is the ones Pollinix always wearing in the videos. I lost mine, and I'm really sad. So I need to hit them up and get some more. Those are my favorite ones.
Yeah, which is what those are, and again, hands down, just like you're saying, my favorite
So
ones.
dope.
Yeah, they are my everyday glasses.
Put them on real quick. Let's get a look. Let's get a model shot. Look,
show them off a little bit.
Yeah, man, make a sexy face. Do something Zoolandery. Oh, geez. Oh my gosh. Take them back off. It's too much. It's too much. You ever see that old SNL sketch where they're like making fun of what's that dude's name? Living La Vida Loca, Ricky, what's his last name? Something. Anyway, but there was like a sketch on SNL where he'd have like a shirt on every time he'd take off a button. The guy would be like, no, that's too much sexy. Don't do that. It's too much sexy. That's you right now with them Becknaras on, boy. That's too much. It's too much sexy.
Yeah, I can get with it. I think last but not least, of course, the guys over at the Working Class Bowhunter podcast and the podcast network, allowing us to do this every week. Hang on to their coattails and try to replicate a little bit of what they're doing. They're doing phenomenal. Yeah, it's crazy. What episode 700 about to come out? Like,
about to drop. I actually redid their intro song for the first time in like 4.5 years or something. Just as like a celebratory thing for episode 700. So I remixed it a little bit, changed the bass line a little bit, because the thing was we know people love that intro song, and so we didn't want to change it so much to have people be like, oh no, you messed with the classic. But I just tweaked it a little bit, and then we changed out some of like the vocal samples. For hey, you're listening to the Working Class Bowhunter. Like one of them that's really dope is Jimmy John, like the Jimmy John from Jimmy John's Sandwich Shops.
Right. Yeah,
he helicoptered into their show to record, like literally helicoptered in, and then he did like a voice drop for us. But his voice is very like what's that dude's name? Steve-O. He kind of sounds like Steve-O. So he's like, hey, you're listening to the Working Class Bowhunter podcast. It's the best, or whatever. And Kurt was like, hey, I'm so pumped that he did one, but can you shorten it? Like his voice is, So we actually like chopped it down a little bit, even though he's like a big deal. His voice was sort of like, well, let's tune that down a little bit. But yeah, they're getting ready to drop 700, which shout out to them boys. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
Again, we've said this story a million times, but like when they first started it, Kurt was like, hey, I'm gonna start a podcast. You want to help me with like tech stuff? And I was like, yeah, dude, for sure. But like, why? Why do a podcast? Like, who cares? And that was in 2015. I wish I could have started Tackling Tacos in like 2012 or whatever, because then I could just be doing that for a living now. Back then, it wasn't so saturated, and to stick around with a podcast for that long is pretty freaking impressive. So, anything else, Nate? You want to bring the man in or what?
Yeah, let's get him in. Let's bring him on in here.
All right, for sure. So, like we said, this guy is he's been on the podcast before. He came to us from a hotel before when he was on a work trip, and he's just one of the most authentic dudes out there. Authentic, real, sincere. His podcast is not polished, and that's not to say that it's like not good. It's extremely good, but it's just so raw that you can kind of trust what comes out of his mouth. I think he's got like 16,000 subscribers on YouTube. He knows his crap forwards and backwards when it comes to fishing, connected all over. You hear about him from so many other podcasts. People reference him. Oh, Hellabass, whatever. And let's bring him in. We're pumped to have Rich back on the show. So, Rich, welcome back, sir. How are you? Hey.
What's going on, boys? I always
What's up?
love the super hype intros you guys do for guests. Make you feel really good about.
Well, good. We want you to feel good because we feel good that you're on our podcast. We're stoked to have you, man.
Well
And
deserved. Well deserved.
you're wearing a hoodie that nobody's seen yet. So how exciting
world
is that?
premiere of the Hellabass hoodie merch. Like I've got some other
really
T-shirts and stuff, but this is the first. But I will say somebody ordered one, so there is another one out there.
Oh, for real? That's exciting.
It probably hasn't arrived at their house yet, but it's shipped from the store.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
I don't know how you feel about it, dude. I know you're on like a way higher stratosphere of podcasting than we are, but every time we get an order come in, we do all of our like website building through Wix. It's just really easy to do like the what do you call it? The inventory and tracking and call whatever. Anyway, Wix says you got an order. We're like, oh snap! Like every time, it's still so exciting, dude. And when we did like our little sale thing, it was like they were really fast coming in, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. But I think it's more so people just love a sale. They don't really care about us. But that's a dope hoodie though. Like that design's super fresh. Did you design that, or how do you get your stuff made?
I had my buddy Dan Fabiano at Arsenal Fishing did this logo for me. So
okay,
I was gonna say definitely has that Arsenal fishing feel.
It does.
It's
clean. Yeah. Is Dan the owner? Who owns Arsenal?
Yeah, Dan, owner, founder, sole proprietor.
Yeah,
like
that's dope.
It's definition of a small business for sure.
Yeah, that's right. A couple years ago, I remember. I'm pretty certain it was him. He was selling his Triton on Bass Boat Central.
Dark charcoal green.
Charcoal and green. Yep, had the G-Tech E2.
Yeah.
All Lowranced out. Yeah, I love mine. So just stop it. I got enough crap from Andy from Team Marine about that.
If yours is good and it's been good this long, you probably got a good one. Like you'd already
exactly
know
it.
whether
Yeah, it's so funny how that works. And the funny thing is too, like I just saw on like a Legends page because I have a Legend V20. I saw on a Legends page somebody asked like, hey, what kind of speed should I be getting? I just bought like a used 16, and people are like, oh, 64 to 68, 65 to whatever. And this one dude with the E-Tech G2 is like, I see 73, 74, and they're like, bullshit. And the other people jumped in, they're like, no, that E-Tech, if you had one that worked, like it was a rocket. But anyway, I tried to buy his Triton from Bass Boat Central, whatever, and I emailed through Arsenal, and they were like, oh, I'm sorry, he sold that like 4 months ago. I don't know why that's still on the website. I was like, God dang it. Like super. Like a third of a year later. That. Yeah, maybe he's too busy running Arsenal.
It's in Minnesota, and I've seen it a few times bouncing around tournaments.
Sometimes
I see it in the shop at Intune Marine.
Oh, sure.
In the E-Tech workshop. Like that was not a good E-Tech.
No, that one was not. So maybe
you should be thankful, Jordan, that you did not end up with that.
Yeah, I dodged a bullet on that one, I guess. But I ended up getting one that I really like. And the only issue I had with it.
If that guy listens to your podcast, I'm sorry about that. But
I'm not. But yeah, it's so funny how everybody hates on him. But you're exactly that is like the common. If you got a good one, you got a good one. But if you didn't, then hold the. I can't remember who I was talking to. A guy from not Intune, Warner's Dock. Who was it? Some pro who had one who got so used to having to change out the spark plugs on them that he would do it on the water in like 5 minutes, like during a tournament, because he would be like taking off to his next spot and wouldn't get up. So he would go to his next spot, put his poles down, whatever, change out the spark plugs on the water, and then like keep on ripping. And I was like, oh my God, dude. I'm like, if I have to get to the point where I'm changing out spark plugs mid derby, like this thing has to go. But I haven't had that same issue. So
I was kind of like that with my 05 Mercury EFI. I had some kind of weird faulty oil reservoir.
Oh, snap.
Like once my main oil tank would get like below half, then it would just slowly bleed the reservoir. Like it was some kind of vacuum. And then like so all of a sudden I'd be going along and I'd be like beep.
Yeah, you get that warning.
And then like I'd like shut it down, go back, lift the motor cover off, loosen the cover, fast idle it, let it like fill back up, tighten it, put the cover back on, and be gone.
Oh my gosh. Was that on that Bass Cat you had, that old Bass Cat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a dope boat, dude. Excuse me. All right, so let's catch up. Let's play a little bit of catch up since last time you've been here. How's life been? Have you had any good tacos? Every once in a while, you'll send me some good photos. What have you been on lately? You sent me one the other day that you said was really simple, but it was like chicken and peppers and like some corn tortillas. And are you the cook in your house, or who does it up?
It's a 50-50 probably.
Okay.
So I probably cook half the time, and my kids, if I put something in a taco, they'll probably eat it.
Yeah.
So like,
Nice.
if there's a little bit leftover steak or ground beef or chicken, like slicing it up and making it into a taco or quesadilla is like a go-to, like repurposing food. So yeah, the last taco was, and actually that one, I think my wife is kind of off the spice right now because she just had like her gallbladder removed, so she's trying to avoid some of that spicy stuff. So like, I baked some chicken for her, and then we had 2 chicken breasts, and I did like a quick marinade on those, sliced it, pan grilled it, threw in some peppers, some seasoning.
Perfect.
Grilled some corn shells, soft corn shells, and kind of threw it together. Threw some, try to keep some avocados on hand.
Yes.
My kids will.
That's the way to do it.
Usually douse them with, like pizza topping cheese, make them kind of ghetto. But whatever, like I said, whatever makes you happy.
I mean, that's the thing. Exactly right. They're tacos. Do whatever you want.
And then, like I like we talked about this last time, but I'm pretty much like a once a week hit up Taco Bell for lunch kind of guy. Like just basic crunchy shell taco.
Yeah.
$5 box type stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had John Cox on recently. We haven't launched the episode with it yet, but we asked John a quick question about tacos, and his first instinct was like, were you talking about like Taco Bell or what? And I loved how just like he didn't care. John is like the nicest, most authentic cat ever. He wasn't trying to pretend. He'd be like, well, when I visit like this like fancy, he was like, oh, you mean Taco Bell? Like he didn't even try and act like there was something else. And I was like, yeah, dude, Taco Bell's dope. I have no shame in going to Taco Bell.
I really thought about orchestrating it where I cracked open a $5 box on the air tonight, like while we went live.
You add either that or
here's my
or some 6-pack and a pound.
Build my own $6 box at Taco Bell, and this is why I go with this and this. But
instead of Jigs, let's go a different direction. Everything I know about Taco Bell, that would have been a good one.
Since Lola's not here, I'm not going to talk about Jigs, and we're going to talk about Taco Bell instead.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. Have you had? Let's get into the nitty gritty, dude. Have you had the grilled cheese burrito taco thing that they have, where it's like that slick coating of cheese that's melted on top of the burrito shell?
I think I have.
It's so good. It's really messy and kind of slimy, but frick's sake, it is so good.
Not something you get through the drive-through.
No, unless you want to get your truck wheel all nasty. Yeah.
Or if you're riding in Nate's truck, then for sure. But like that's what you're on your own.
Absolutely, yeah. But in the winter, like I don't want to get too gross here, but in the winter, you start eating that thing with the windows shut. That's a risky proposition because that Taco Bell does not sit well in your belly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it'll get through you quick.
It'll go through you quick, and then your buddies will pay for it. It ain't good. But
that was my also go-to morning after UW stout. Like if I really got after it too much and like I needed something that was just gonna like speed up the process, it was like, let's go get some chalupas. And like I know that's just gonna like force things to process a little quicker.
Yeah. I don't know. Did I know that you went to stout, dude? I don't know if I knew that. That's dope, man. So do you know Tainter and Monoman and stuff pretty well?
I have fished Tainter, Monoman with soda.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's what's up, dude. Which one's the one that's right in Menominee? Is that Tainter?
Monoman.
I guess that makes sense. Menominee. I mean,
it connects. I guess
it connects through the right, but you can get. But it's like grumpy old men out there. I mean, it is an ice shanty like city on Monoman right now. Like when you go by kind of in Menominee and look down onto it, like there's just shacks as far as the eye can see, and there's like plowed out roads on the snow, and like it's wild, dude. It's crazy. How do you feel about ice fishing, Rich?
Ice is for cocktails, not fishing.
Dude, it's rough, man. I want to like it, but it sucks, dude.
When I was in high school, college, growing up, we did it. I didn't mind it. But somewhere my gear disappeared. Like when I went off to college, and after that, I was like, I just never. I don't know. I think if I was gonna do it, it would be like the Crappie Chronicle guys now again, where like they got a team and they're drilling like 300 holes and they're dropping
Everywhere.
their scope. I mean, they're running and gunning like
Yeah.
bass boat style on the ice.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
I
definitely
really
would be the
like
way
that
to go
idea.
about it.
Yeah, the live scope on the ice, because that does change it. Because sometimes when I put my little flasher down there, like it's fun, but like it just feels like there's no way that I'm really like seeing what I need to see.
But
And
like even for those guys before they had live scope, they would just drill
1,000 holes.
They would just like go on a basin and just drill a hole every 15, 20 feet and just walk
Yeah.
around and drop the Vexlar, look, spin it around. Nope, next hole. Like then
Yeah.
they weren't fishing until they saw something, or like
Yeah.
they'd drop down, see if anything like popped up off the bottom, and then they'd move. Like
Maybe that's what I need to
I
do.
think I could get down for some ice harvesting. Like I don't want to go fishing, but if somebody want to be like the shack's warm and the crappie are here and they're biting, like sure, maybe
That's
I'd
different.
go out. But like,
oh, dude. Okay, so
Yeah.
speaking of which, so like I was gonna say this to Nate before you came on, Rich. At we went to this lake called O'Galley. I don't know if you know that one. It's kind of it's west of Eau Claire, kind of heading towards Minnesota, like more towards like just a little north of like Wabasha area across the river. Anyway, it's not far from the Mississippi. Anyway, there was an ice shack, like a permanent one with some windows in it, but it was sealed up pretty tight. And this old dude like started his auger, like old school gas auger, whatever, and it's just spitting smoke everywhere. And he like goes in the hut, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then he shuts the door and starts like drilling his holes. And I told my kids, I'm like, we should like wait and go check on those people because I'm pretty sure they're gonna die in there. Like there was so much stuff coming out of the back of this auger. Yeah, and then he shuts the door. I'm like, dude, you could have at least left the door open. It was like an old man and an old woman, but they're probably used to it. They're probably smoking cigarettes in there and just catching them hand over fist. I don't know, but I was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to like go look in the window to make sure they were still like kicking, you know.
I imagine the window's so coated with nicotine smoke you weren't gonna be able to see into it. So
that's true. That's very true.
Totally there for a little bit of sunlight, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rich, tell us about, if you got a couple minutes, man. Tell us about for anybody who doesn't know, and I think most people do, but tell us about your podcast. Why did you start it? What's the line to make us suck less or whatever? I love your podcast, just to be clear, but tell us a little bit about it.
Help you catch more big bass and suck less.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I would say like podcast is, it kind of gets labeled as a podcast, but really what I'm doing is a YouTube live stream, right? And kind of mentioned in the intro, it's kind of unpolished. All I'm doing is my main product is a YouTube live stream. It gets put out on the MP3 as a podcast. You can watch it later, but it's really more about the live event on the upfront. Like if you can catch it, like there's a lot of interaction, community, talking with the live chat, answering questions, letting the live chat ask the guests if they're on, whoever's on, comment. So that's kind of the differentiator. So it's I would say, because I actually get some comments every now and then to be like, this is the worst podcast ever. Because like they want something very more like, in this segment we're gonna we're gonna
waiting and interacting
what's new, and here's the electric take, and like this and that. Like it's very much unscripted and just a conversation. So if you're looking for polished, you want the same 4 segments with the pattern and perfect audio and all that kind of stuff and everything getting edited and balanced out in the back end, that's not happening. But if you want real conversations, entertainment, interaction with the community and guests, that's what I try to bring on a weekly basis, really on top of my standard long form videos of tournament recaps and rod and reel reviews and tackle tips and like all the other normal kind of YouTube type content that comes out with it. And then we just do live interviews like once a week typically.
Yeah, that's dope. And for what it's worth, your YouTube kills it. Like you said, you have a very broad kind of different styles and I don't know, lengths of videos. You have really good shorts content, and then you have videos, quite a few that are over 100,000 views. So obviously you're doing something right on YouTube. How long ago did you start your YouTube?
Yeah, I probably really got it serious again in like beginning of 2019. Like kind of getting back into it.
Yeah.
I had some videos, like I dabbled back in like 2014, 2015 when I've been really smart to go all in, but didn't really stick with it.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. And then, really to your question of why did the podcast, why did the live stream start? I was just trying to hit my watch hours to get monetized during COVID.
Smart.
And so it was kind of like, I want to get my watch hours up, and I'd like to talk to some people out fishing instead of just being like cooped up in my house with my, love my daughters and my wife, but they don't want to talk fishing with me. So like, it was a great outlet to be able to like talk fishing with people. And once you got over, like the Zoom type feel of it, it was like hanging out at the boat ramp and just talking fishing, and that was very therapeutic at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that was one of the weirdest times ever, and we don't have to really talk about it. But when COVID was going on and they were like shutting down boat ramps, which was the most social distancing thing you could possibly do, I was like, wait a minute, like that was so weird and so illogical. The whole thing was weird, and I tried to give grace because I'm like, we've never gone through something like this, but like the very act of being away from people, being out on the water, you're shutting that down. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was dumb. Yeah, that was really dumb. So walk us through a little bit, man. If anybody follows you online, they probably already know the answer to this. But you fished some opens last year, and then you posted some videos saying like, that's it, I'm done with opens. What was that experience like? And you're not a newcomer to like fishing big derbies, obviously, with like Bass Federation Nation championships and all that big stuff. But like, what was it like fishing the opens from your perspective, and why throw the towel in?
Yeah. And so I kind of always wanted to like try the opens, right? Like definitely when I was like young and cocky and like in my 20s, like I thought for sure that I wanted to be like FLW Tour Bassmaster top 150, before Elite Series. Like, but like even then when the Elite Series started, I thought like, yeah, someday I'd like to do that, right? As I got older, maybe wiser, definitely had more obligations at home, family, stuff like that. I realized that probably was never really going to happen. And as I got a little older, I knew I still wanted to fish like some Toyotas or Strins or Opens or something, at least at some point, to kind of like test myself and just kind of see what it was like to make sure that I like did it, and instead of being like, "Oh, I wish I would have," right? At least known that like I did throw my hat in and do some upper level tournaments. And to me, making the classic is still a goal. And that's why I've always fished the Bass Nation stuff over the years, is because I always like, even though it's a long shot, but every year I'm kind of like putting my chips in, buying that ticket every year. And I've come close. I mean, this year will be my 5th trip to the Bass Nation National Championship. So gonna still pursuing that goal.
That's
but
awesome.
with the
Congrats, by the way.
Bassmaster
That's sweet.
Opens Division 3, really the first time since I've been alive that I remember that having 2 events anywhere near me, let alone one, and then not having the third one. Like, I mean, a typical Bassmaster Open schedule in the past would be like James River, Champlain, right? And then like maybe you'd get one in La Crosse, but even then you wouldn't, right? So even if you got one close to your house, the other 2 would be like 20-hour drives or 15-hour drives, right? So the fact that this year it was St. Clair, which was like 11 hours. And I mean, I think if St. Clair's not on your bucket list, you're probably not a real bass angler, or you already live there.
No doubt.
And then having 2, basically 3 hours from my house, and I live right in between them. And I had basically buddies that lived on both of those fisheries that I could stay at. I was like, if you're ever going to do it, it's this year. And I wanted to give it a shot and test myself. Now, I went in with the mentality that I really was going to, and this is not normal for me. I am very much an angler that shoots for, I don't know if I shoots for, but like I'm pretty consistent. I get a lot of top 5, top 10s, cash a lot of checks. I don't win I mean, I've won tournaments, but like I don't win at a like insane clip like Pat Schlopper or Seth Fighter when he was back. Like those guys, like they like, right, like, but I'm pretty solid at cash and checks and being an angler of the year titles if I fish a full circuit and things like that. But I went into the opens going, it really wasn't about cash and checks. I really wanted to put in my homework, do my practice, and fish the tournament with the goal of putting myself in the very best position to try to win so that I can make a Bassmaster Classic. So I do believe I could have fished more conservatively and probably cashed a check somewhere along the lines in that series.
Yeah.
And I came pretty close on Leech. I was like 5 spots away from a check or something like that. Like that was pretty close. But I spent so much time practicing for smallmouth and it never really came to fruition. I never really got that bite dialed in, but I literally devoted 80% of my practice to it. And then probably 30% of my 2 tournament days and never weighed one in. So like I was scrambling to catch largemouth after that. You know, so I did fall back at some point. At some point I realized you're not going to win. You might want to try to cash a check here. And even like lacrosse, you know, I very much practiced with the mentality and I found some fish. They kind of they ghosted me, but once I found them, I kind of built the rest of my practice around it. Like really, hey, like this is the only thing I found where I think I can catch 17 to 19 pounds, and that's what it's going to take to win this tournament.
Yep.
And I stuck to that, and then, you know, came up short. And so, I mean, I had some decent tournaments. I mean, I had my best day of the year was the first day. I was in check range on Lake St. Clair. Second day was a train wreck. I didn't adjust. I probably didn't pre-fish correctly. Spread myself a little bit too thin. So like I was on pace to have a good tournament there. Had a second, like you have a bad day, it's over on the Bassmaster Opens, and then Leech. 2 solid days had me just outside the check, and then lacrosse I was like right in the middle of the pack. So I mean, it wasn't a total disaster. It was decent. It was definitely not up to where I wanted it to be.
Sure.
I am not.
Yep.
I am not pleased or happy with the way my opens went from a performance standpoint and where my finishes were.
Yeah.
But I am glad I did it. And I will tell you, those guys are a bunch of monsters out there. Like, it's crazy. Like, would have been way smarter to fish the Bass Opens 15, 20 years ago, because I guarantee you the field wasn't that stout.
Yeah. There's some killers out there.
But with the it is just a grind. Like, especially with the 4.5 days of practice, and like you're there a week, and it's like if you're really going for it and going all out, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if they had another schedule in the near few years, maybe I would consider about it if it really came back, you know, this close again. But I knew, like, that video, obviously the last one's like, it was a little bit of a, I kind of thought about the title of the video as the tournament was happening. like, so like, I mean, that's part of the game of content creation, right? Like, but so, and when they knew they heard they were going to go to this, like, and just the fact that they've gone to 4 in a single division now, right? You have to fish all 4 to be eligible for the classic. That's a big difference than 3. I know it's only one more tournament, but like,
it is different.
That's 4 weeks of travel instead of 3 weeks. That's, you know, $8,000 instead of $6,000 in entry fees. Like, it stacks up pretty quick if you have a job. Now, if you're just chasing the dream and you're all in and you're young and you're 22 and you're sleeping in a van and you don't have a mortgage or any kids and a wife, sure, then what's another tournament? Like, but if you've got 94 kids like Jordan does, like that's a big commitment to add another week of tournaments.
It is. Yeah, it really is. Who won Leech? Did Father Gillett win that?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
That was his second win of the year.
Yeah, what an a-hole. Man, that dude can fish. So let me ask you something that I've never asked anybody. Speaking of like opens and whatever, what do you think of the Legends exemption in BASS?
I think it's okay.
I feel weird about it.
And I understand it. And I think most people think that those people are keeping spots away from younger anglers, and that's not the case.
No.
But I'm just saying, like, a lot of people's beef with the Legends exemption, they believe that, like, if Rick Clunn wouldn't have been there for the last 5 years, some other younger person that maybe would catch them better would be there. But they do all their calculations, and then they add the Legends on top. So that's definitely not part of it.
It is a separate,
And, you know, there's guys like Ken Duke who are very plugged in to fishing, and I for the most part respect what Ken Duke thinks. I don't always agree with him, but he very much thinks that, like, we should parade Bill Dance and Rick Clunn and Hank Parker and anybody that's willing, those guys, because he thinks that the fans care and they will drive the fans and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not so sure. Like, at some point, I don't know. Like, I did not want to see Rick Clunn. Like, I was surprised when he won, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But, like, it's not. I don't think it's a great look to see a guy struggling to finish 90th in the OI, right? And then
Yeah,
it's
like
still an amazing
Larry,
feat at
what's his
70
face?
plus
Yeah.
years old. I mean, like, who knows if I would go out there and finish 90th, but like,
Right.
neither here nor there. But like, I'm kind of mediocre on. I'm not passionate one way or the other. If they were holding spots from somebody else, then I would probably feel more passionate against it, maybe. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of hardcore anglers and probably the older generation that do really appreciate, Nixon coming back and doing his stint and
Nixon, that's
and
what I was trying
Clunn
to think of.
lasting as
Duh.
long as he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it'll be good to see Cliff Pace and Randy Hall come back.
Yeah.
Good dudes. I don't know how great they're going to do. If we're just
Yeah.
being like, I want to see
Right.
them do well,
It's
but
not
I'm
it's
not.
not
I
the
mean,
it's
like,
not the classics
they're
they
not going
won
to be in
though.
my starting lineup for the St. John's Fancy Fishing. I'll tell you that for
Absolutely.
free.
Yep.
Right.
No, that's the truth. It's not the same. It's
Yeah.
not the same fishing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just I don't know. I was just thinking because I really like Randy Howell. I'm kind of whatever about Game Face because he's Game Face. He doesn't really show a lot of emotion and vibe and whatever. But like, yeah, it just seems weird the Legends thing. But at the same time, though, like the other guys who've gotten in via Legends, like Jordan Lee, it's like I'm stoked to see him back on the Elites. So it's like I'm stoked to see him there. But at the same time, all these other guys are grinding their nuts off to get into where they are and. I don't know.
And I think it comes down to person, right? Like some people are like they vibe with Cliff and they're super stoked. I think almost everybody likes Randy Howell. Like,
yeah.
But picture this. Let's say next year Takahiro is up for the Legends. Are you hyped for that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't know. That's
Right?
a tough
Like,
one. Yeah.
you want to see? I knew it. You want to see those replays during the best elite, right? Like, yeah, we're all in for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody likes talk.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I think you got to keep it even. And, I think Casey Ashley's pretty close on the list if he wants to do it, based on what I understand.
Yeah. I wonder. Yeah. Me and my Lola, me and my wife were talking about it. I'm like, what about Jay Yellis or what about like who, like all these dudes who, like you said, kind of like Yellis the Rick Clunns, the Larry Nixons and the, no, I'm not saying he would actually come back, but I just mean like in general, like this idea, I don't know. It's just an interesting concept because I do think the opens is so stacked full of absolute like super hammers and super hammers who are like, it's the same thing as like Gus. He's 3 years old and he can shoot a deer and catch a fish on like Nintendo Switch. And like when I was 3 years old, I didn't know how to use a video game or whatever. And whatever. I'm like some of these kids, the way that they're coming up in this stuff now, like the learning curve is a lot steeper, I think, than perhaps it used to be. You look at like Trey McKinney and who like that dude was, how old was he last year when he won? Like 11 and a half. I mean, it's a different ball game now. I feel like, what did Gussie call him on the podcast, Nate? The kids? Is that what he called them?
Kids, yeah.
He's like, the kids are over there doing whatever. And he didn't mean it like derogatory. They're just legitimate like kids compared to him. So yeah, I do think the Opens is a different ball game now.
We need to celebrate and figure out a way to like preserve that, right? I think if there was money for it and there was a way to do it, I'd think some kind of, I don't know that we need a full Legends tour. Like, I don't think we need like some like 10 event or 6 event season, but I think if we could have a couple specialty events where we could sprinkle in and get like Nixon and Brower and Clunn, like, and now Van Dam and like that kind of like, that would be awesome to figure out a way to do that and mix that in, where they do like maybe fish on an off day or an adjacent tournament or something like that. Or I always thought it'd be cool, like to also like, wouldn't it be cool to like invite certain legends back during the season, like when they go to like Missouri to like Bull Shoals and the waters and the bushes, wouldn't you like to see Brower come back and flip against these guys, or something like that, or like you can line it up, right? Like, I don't know, that'd be kind of cool to like
that would be
spice it up.
Yeah.
So I think there is room to do something to do more, because I just think it's important. Like those guys did a lot for our sport,
for sure.
And there is a fine line on, giving them, the Legends exemptions, but having them around, whether it's guest talks, maybe now that Zona's gone, maybe we rotate in Brower and all these different anglers instead of just, there's probably better ways to keep them involved in the sport and keep the fans excited about it and have them around and accessible for fans.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's a great point. That'd be really fun to watch too. That'd be super good. I mean, that'd be entertaining. Like for me, I'm old and I still like try and snowboard and skateboard and whatever. And there's like snowboard competitions out there still for old dudes like me, like the 40+ class, whatever. Because like these dudes used to shred, and it's like it's not like, oh, that's cute, he can still do a backflip. It's like, dude, that cat's 47 years old and he's still pushing it, you know. So like, and I think fishing obviously is significantly different. Like, you know, Clun won when he was in his 60s, like what, 2 times in 4 years or whatever it was. And yes, I mean, it's still a thing, but yeah, I don't know, just a random rabbit trail to go down. Nate, you got any other questions for Rich before we transition into jig talk?
Well, while we're talking about the opens, just a quick one on like what are your thoughts on the removal of the coes out of the opens? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I did the math on it, and based on the because my initial take was like, do we really want to take the coes out? Because they're generating revenue. So if we take the coes out, then that operating revenue now has to come out of the pros payout. That was my initial take. But at the numbers they were getting, it was not that impactful. Like it was like less than 10 grand per event. So like it really wasn't moving the needle. Now if it was a full field, but like I don't know. I don't know if there's any like recoup on the back end. Is it easier for bass? They need less administration to like not register codes and do payouts. And I mean the weigh-ins are faster, which is nice. So that's a plus from like that perspective. I mean, like St. Clair, we had 200, or we had like a high number, like 150 plus. I mean, like the biggest number of codes in a long time on St. Clair, and that weigh-in
took forever.
was like 5 hours long. It was
golly.
Like, so
jeez.
I don't know. Like I'm a little bit torn because I think the space for the co-anglers is important. I think if the participation would have been maintained, I think bass would have kept it around. I do like it because like, well, who's really watching these open guys now, right? Like they're self-policing.
Sure.
Like they're not required to run GoPros in the Bassmaster Opens if they don't have a marshal or a co. So, you know, I don't know. That's I'm a little worried about that, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
a good point.
Especially with the win you're in, like,
yeah.
So, but overall, I'm not against co-anglers. I know a lot of people feel like they disrupt tournaments and they can change their outcomes. I don't know that it really matters that much. Like, I don't know how often over a whole season, you know, is that really going to keep somebody out of the top 9 that should be there?
Right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I know I got buddies that are pretty adamant, like they are not friends of codes, but I do think there's like a lot of so I mean, why do we have lower participation? Is because there are boaters and pros that don't treat codes with any kind of respect.
Right.
And
100%,
like don't you know what I mean? And like they create bad experiences for codes that don't want to sign up again. Now, on the flip side, there are some codes that create experiences that make boaters think like that. Like you get like 1 or 2 bad codes out of like 20, and all of a sudden you're like, man, like I'd rather not have codes than have you know drop a chance to draw on somebody that behaved like that in my boat or stuff like that. So I do get that. So there's that, and then you know the forward facing technology has not helped that, and I do think it's more of a perception thing. Particularly like there is just as many times you could be drugged down a bank with no chance of catching fish because you're not around fish. Like, sure, that boater may have caught a fish last Tuesday there, but there's no guarantee there's any fish around. But for some reason, a co would rather, they feel more comfortable dabbing down a creek bank, hoping there's a fish there, thinking they have a higher chance than being out in the middle where they are definitely around fish because you know their boater can see them on their electronics. Now, there are some scenarios where you aren't going to catch. It'd be really difficult to catch them, but I'd rather be around some fish knowingly. So I don't know. Like, there's been plenty of coasts, and it's weird because it's like there's several co-anglers that have been good for years, and they were good before scope, and they were good during scope, and like it's a mindset thing. And but there's a lot of codes that gave up because they're like, oh, I don't want to go out and just sit in the abyss while this guy shines at fish, and you know, but like. It's a mentality thing, but you know, you're still around fish, and they're that those fish that he's looking at right now, that's not the only fish within a casting distance of you right now. That would be pretty low odds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably why a lot of coasts too were doing that thing when they're bringing their own live scope with, which is crazy to me, but also like, you know, necessity is the mother of invention.
Sure.
Yeah, like dudes, I feel like dudes probably felt they had to. Nate, you had some good co and some bad co scenarios, right? Like when you were coing for folk.
Yeah. I fished 2 opens as a co in 13, and then I think I fished 1 in like 17. And I want to say almost every experience. I want to say one bad experience was a boat breakdown, which the boater was he was great. Like he was super cool, but we started off with a trolling motor. Like we couldn't blast off, we couldn't do anything. So that was kind of unfortunate. One of them, and then the other one was a guy that he just didn't really. He was one of those. He didn't want me there. He was one of those ones. He just didn't. He wasn't a fan of any co. It didn't matter who it was. Yeah, for sure. So
like you got hung up or something, right, with a jig, and he was like, break it off. Like he wasn't even a consideration. Which that's whatever. He's the boater, but like, dang.
Yeah. We were having a regular conversation, man to man for 20 minutes, and then I use that same voice and say, "Hey, I'm hung," and all of a sudden you can't hear me. It's just that ain't too believable. But so I think one of their big pushes was like, we're trying to make this as close to the elites as possible. The elites don't have codes, and so we're not going to have codes. And I feel like that's a bad take, because all of those guys who are elite anglers now busted their ass to get there, fishing with codes in the back of their boat. Why would you not have the same upbringing, the same guys coming up go through the same stuff? I don't
like, you think the training ground is different with that, or because of
no
that,
doubt.
Or
no doubt, without a doubt. Like Rich was saying, the pressure of guys catching fish behind you, or worrying about different stuff with somebody else in your boat. Like everybody else had to deal with that, and now you don't. Like
you get to fish a little more free.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I personally don't love it. That's probably just coming from somebody who's fished as a co before, but I just wanted to get your take was all.
Yeah.
I don't know where that, long term is this gonna create a shortage of boaters 5-10 years down the line, because there's less avenues for co-anglers to learn and grow into the sport. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Because I don't know how major of an on-ramp it was, but it definitely was an on-ramp for a lot of folk.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I jumped into the co's way too early. Like I started fishing tournaments in like 2012 and 2013. I was like, oh, let's go fish these opens. I had no clue. I owned like 4 rods. I had no business out there fishing.
Yeah, but it
was. Yeah, and exactly. It was a crazy eye-opening experience that allowed me to learn so much, and I do not regret it in the least. Like,
awesome.
Some of the guys that I fished with were amazing. Techniques I never would have thought of, presentations I never would have thought of. Like it was really eye-opening. And then some of the graceful people just, hey, I go down a day early. Can I practice with you? Yeah, absolutely. Come on, jump in the boat. We'll go for a ride and have fun. Like, meeting a lot of really cool people like that was a lot of fun. So I kind of feel bad for the co's in that sense.
Yeah, sure. Didn't you fish with Trait too, of the Bilge podcast fame?
The Bilge podcast, Trait Zaldane. I did fish with her. Yes. Yep, I did. I fished.
Was she trash talking anybody while you were in the boat with her?
No, she wasn't. She was really cool. Yeah. She was really cool. And we fished, I want to say it was day 1 on the Arkansas River out of Muskogee, Oklahoma, was where we fished back in 13. Yeah, it was cool. She kept telling me that Chris was backing us down like 3 or 4 different times, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Who's Chris? Oh, it's my fiance or whatever. And it's Chris Zaldane the whole time. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
No, I had no clue.
Though. That's kind of rad though, that you were so green you didn't really know who it was, but
not an idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rad. And she was, I mean, I really wish there was like 1, 2, I don't know, however many can just kill it, like meritocracy, but I wish there was a couple chicks on the elites, I know there's some trying, like there's chicks on the opens right now. Doesn't look like they did super, super well on this first one, but I think that's dope that they're out there doing it.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, let's get into some serious stuff, Rich. The pressure's on you. I don't know if you have seen the movie Top Gun. what's that? The danger zone, highway to the danger zone. I have a hat here. I want you to walk me through how to cut this into a visor. Nate, you have a hat ready?
I got a hat
Nate's
on deck.
got a hat here. Can we talk about your hat though, Nate? Because if anybody and their mom is a BASS member, they know that freaking hat that cost BASS 31 cents to produce. I don't know how many of those, a few. All my kids have them. They don't wear them either because they're shallow as hell. Yeah. Like the one Rich has is dope. The one Nate has is like, it stops like right here. It's like super shallow. It's like, it's almost a yarmulke. Like, I mean, that thing is little, but
no doubt.
Yeah. I have 3 pairs of scissors here, Rich. I got a full pair.
I mean, you're all going to have yarmulkes when we're done.
That's classic television right there. I got a long pair of scissors, 2 short ones. I have a knife. I don't know what do we cut these with. Walk us through it, Rich. Let's do it up.
To me, right? I keep a Arsenal battle braid scissors handy, which is a good sharp scissor for cutting braid, and fishing line is enough.
These are Spro ones that are braid ones, but I don't know.
I can't speak to it, but if you feel good about it, then yeah.
Okay. All right.
Have you ever seen? First of all, have you ever watched me do one on stream before?
No.
So you're a fake fan.
No, I'm a real fan. I'm a real fan, but I told you I listen to your podcast more than anything because I drive around a lot for work.
So you've heard me do it.
I guess I've heard you, but that doesn't help me with the visual cues. I'm a real fan, I promise.
Okay. All right. So the first, let's just back it up here. Like, not every hat is visor material.
Oh,
okay.
All right.
Oh,
I mean, like this hat right here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect for sure. Yeah.
Way too high. Like, you are not making a visor out of this. I feel like the Bass U one is probably okay. The Bass Mesh one, you can probably make it work, right? Like,
okay, good.
So you want something like this is probably about as big of a high of a logo you're going to get away with and still make a visor out of it. So let's just be understanding. Like, not every hat is,
visorable.
Right. Like, if you got a huge patch like this Arsenal hat right here, right, with this, if you get one of the ones with the low offset logos, don't mind all the sweat and DNA in this visor that you can probably see in the lighting here.
You could sell that on eBay for big money, dude.
If you ever want to clone me, you could probably scrape some out of there.
That's the one. Did Arsenal make you that hat for you to do that?
No, this is a regular Arsenal hat that's been customized. Yeah.
Hey, do you remember the last time you were on here? We were messing with you about the whole visor thing, and like one of your like fans like lit us up on YouTube or social. Like, they were so mad that we were like picking on you about the visor thing, and I'm like, homie, we're not actually picking on Rich. Like, we really like this dude, but I was like, whoa, like somebody really was ready to like fight us.
So yeah.
All right, what do we do?
I think we covered maybe a little bit last time for those that didn't listen to the last podcast.
Yeah.
Which you can go back and listen to that as well. Like, I recommend getting back into the archives, dig back into the catalog. But
for sure.
Right. There is reasons, right? So one, like hats, I don't know, like don't always fit my head the greatest.
Okay.
Like first of all, like this is 2 buttons undone. This thing ain't even close to fitting my head, right? Like we typically got to go only 2 buttons engaged on a snapback.
I only got 3 on mine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, but like I'm bottomed out. Like on this.
You got a big dome. Yeah, you got a big dome. So do I.
Fairly ahead. Like, so, just giving you a little backstory. It's not right. So, for fit reasons, most hats. That's where it started. Like, and you think about when I started wearing fishing hats. What were the fishing hats like you had available to you in 1995? Like, they were not called like Richardson 112, right? Like,
yeah.
So that's where like I couldn't find hats that would fit. Cut them off, right? I think we talked about how it's a great place to tuck your sunglasses in up here so you don't lose sunglasses off the front of your hat. You're running down the lake, you put it over your arm as a coat, you put it over your throttle shifter as a boater, right? There's just a lot of advantages, right? Perfect. So that's the why. But now how do you perform this?
Yeah.
So if you've never done it before, a simple way to do it is to take an existing visor and kind of just like do this and give yourself a little template.
Yeah.
That's an option. We're probably don't have that option because you guys didn't think ahead. So you're gonna probably just have to
we definitely didn't. Yeah, we're gonna have to shoot from the hip here.
Right. So it's too bad because I just made an Omnia visor like Wednesday night. So
Dude, Omni is the coolest, by the way.
But typically I am gonna like take this and you kind of
you
want
kind
to
of
like
taper it down.
yeah, you're gonna right. So you kind of got to think, where do you want this to hit?
Yeah.
Here, right?
Yeah.
Like to come across, because you want it fairly flat across. And here's one pro tip: if you're gonna miss high.
Yeah, because you can take
way
more
easier
off.
to trim
Yeah.
than it is to try to add it back after you've hacked it way too low.
Yeah, for sure.
If that's not obvious,
These are pro tips.
So you kind of make a mental note here where you want it to come across, right? And then, typically here, you probably want, I don't know, think of it like a shot glass. You want a solid 2.5 fingers to start there.
Yeah.
And then you're going to kind of come at a straight line to where you want it to hit I don't even want to call it the front panel. And you can definitely sketch it out with a pencil or a marker. I've done
marking it with a pen right now.
Go in and just start freehanding it. But otherwise, you can kind of give yourself some little hash marks, some little guides to follow, and then give her a heck, and then you can always trim a little bit if you need to.
Where are you starting? Where are you starting on your cuts?
I start near the snapback.
Okay.
And then and then you have a decision. You can either go to the midpoint and stop and come back the other way, or just keep going all the way around.
Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous.
That's kind of personal preference.
Just so you know, Nate and I are both bald as hell. Like we don't got a full head of hair like you do, so this is going to be even more interesting.
You guys should probably take me off big screen. You guys should like go to a more even split for the YouTube viewers. And like, if you guys are listening on a podcast right now, you need to come over to the YouTube and check this out.
All right, I made my cut.
Come on, you got to put yourself bigger so we can see what's going on here.
All right, let me move this over. All right, my first cut on one side. Nate, you make a cut yet?
Not super straight.
I did. I got
no. I mean, I feel like I'm nervous. I feel like I've never done this. What if this becomes my lucky hat though? Like, what if this is like
I got my cut, and then I realized this bass hat actually still had the cardboard inside of it. Yeah. I gotta get rid of that.
Oh my gosh, those crappy bass hats, dude. All right, I'm just going for it, dude. I don't know what I'm really working with here, and I feel like I'm taking Rich's advice on the crest, like the front of the hat, because I'm definitely going higher than I think I should, and hopefully Bass University doesn't feel disrespected here. But the funny thing was, I told Rich this. I paid for
like probably like a voodoo doll, and he's like
he's twitching somewhere right now.
He's feeling every cut. Yeah,
he's like, somewhere throwing a Cinco, and he's mad about. There's the yarmulke.
That's pretty sweet. Are you guys gonna do a giveaway for those for the listeners if they want to like?
You probably should, except for I don't know that anybody actually wants this.
I've signed quite a few of these and given them away on live streams.
For real?
That's hilarious.
All right, I'm gonna taper in the edges here. I'm gonna taper in the edges on the snapback part just to make it look a little cleaner. As a guy who does graphic arts, I got to try and tidy.
I think you need to smooth out that little hump there, but otherwise, I think your lines are
come down on the front.
I mean,
you think?
I'm gonna be honest; those cheap bass hats do not make like.
I can go find another one.
I really wish Lola would have had Gus go to sleep earlier. Oh, I'm so uneven on the front. Look at that; it's so off. Because I really wanted Lola to try this on.
Knock down that one side a little bit.
I should text her and see if she's
look at that melon.
Looking tight.
Looking really good there, officer.
Yeah, you can't even tell that you're wearing. I think you got to take a little off the point there. I think above the bash shield, you got a little bit more of a point. I think you need to kind of flatten that off a little bit because when you like tilt it doesn't even look like you're wearing them.
All right, I'll bring it a little bit off the top yet.
See there, maybe it's just the.
How's it look? How's it feel?
You look.
Am I too
like
tall?
A young Bernie Schultz.
Young Bernie Schultz. That boy's been on the elites since the start.
J9 Raplamino.
Yeah, dude.
That.
Yeah. I feel good right now. I might just keep this on the rest of the show, dude.
So if you watched my tournament videos, though, 90% of the time, the sun hood is up. So the whole, and for me, like if I wear a regular hat and I pull my hood up, like I feel like it's like pulling down on my hat. Do you guys ever do that? Like,
oh,
I
for
don't.
sure. Yeah, you move and it kind of, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like so
Oh,
now.
Nate, you look
up.
good, man.
Throw the hood up, Nate.
Yeah, you look good, man. Daggone. See, if I take the yarmulke apart and put it over my headphones, it's like
you are right. It does not pull down on the head near as much. Like
I don't have a hoodie on, so I can't do that.
If you're wearing the sun hoodie, right, and you put the hood up, now this is not, and so most of the time, this is how I operate. Even with all this luscious flow, I'm still usually hood up.
Yeah, you got some good hair.
Your hair's not as bad as you made it sound, Jordan.
You just can't tell. You and Pipkins are fighting for the good hair game right now. Nate, you look like a young what's that you look like a young black John Gruden right now. You're looking really good.
Oh, I see the John Gruden. I see it.
Yeah, a little darker, a little less racist, hopefully. But you look really good. I like the look. I'm gonna wear this whole rest. I mean, gentlemen, we look good. You know what I'm saying? This is gonna be a distraction for the ladies to take a serious talking about jigs. It's gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is three.
Lola's not gonna know what hit her in about an hour.
No, I mean, we might be on number 7 when I go back in the house. You know, I don't know.
Hey, as long as you show up with just the cutoff.
Yeah. I think you should definitely just roll into the bedroom like this.
Just the yarmulke part.
Just the cut top. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
And then
the thing is yours with the bottom. Yeah.
I look like Spanky right now.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'll put the visor back on.
People have definitely stopped watching now or listening by this point. So
I mean, yeah, if you're not watching on YouTube, this might be our most solid content we've ever created, thanks to Rich. I'm gonna go back in the crib though with just the visor and a smile. It's about to be on like King Kong playing ping pong in Vietnam. I'm gonna sop it up with a biscuit. Also,
Nate does that way better than we do. Like that
doesn't look that terrible. Yeah.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks a little. You look a little Islamic, like the like the really short beanies, sort of.
Yeah.
But I like it. I got so much of this orange Richardson material all over my pants, all over my scissors as I was trying to trim it up. But I think it's worth it, man. I'll wear this in one of my derbies, one of my first derbies this year, and if I win, I'll just keep going for it.
No, if nothing else, it's a good extra. Like you just throw that in the boat. If you need a little rally visor mojo, or
perfect.
The legend blows your other hat off, you just reach in the compartment and pull out the rally visor, and you know that you won't lose that one because you'll put it over the shot, right? And then right. So
I should have cut that one up. That one over my shoulder right there. I don't know if there it is. I'm pointing to it now. That's a signed Polinick hat that I got from my friend Kurt before I even knew Polinick. So then, you know, now it feels weird that I'm sort of fanboying somebody that I'm like friends with now.
On a second time and cut it in front of him.
Yeah. He wouldn't care. He wouldn't give a rat's ass. Yeah, he wouldn't care. He'd be like, "Oh, cool." He wouldn't care. I was talking to Polinick not too long ago about like jerkbait stuff and whatever, and I was telling him how, like,
I was just talking to Polinick, guys.
Well,
big deal.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it because of me. I'm saying because he's just that type of dude. Like he's like that super low key type of. He's like,
I mean, we're tight. I just, whenever we chat, like,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, he came over. He flew his private jet over like Jimmy John's in the helicopter. But I was joking with him how like Megabass keeps on like trying to sponsor us, and he's like, I told him that they're not on your level yet. I'm like, I know. I keep telling them they need to, Megabass needs to step it up before we'll even consider a sponsorship. But maybe one day. Maybe one day Megabass will be big enough for tackling tacos.
Did you hear that private equity has purchased Megabass?
No, I did not. I heard those rumors of it. Did it actually happen?
I think I saw a press release like a week ago.
Really?
Oh wow.
That's an odd thought. I wonder what that looks like. I've been a fan of Megabass for quite a long time. Quite a long time. I've been on them for probably 15 years now. What color is that? That's filthy.
Ooh, yeah.
Sakakura Ghost. So I guess it's a respect color.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, one of those new respect colors they came out with that flat black. It's like Fire Tiger, but it's black. And it's matte finished or whatever. Which I really want to see. One thing I've never seen. Maybe there is such a thing. Maybe you know more. You're smarter than I am, Rich. But I've never seen like an underwater video of a matte lure next to a non-matte lure. Like, do they look that different underwater?
Yeah, I don't know. I know my buddy TK Tacklecraft.
Yeah.
He says matte finishes are a waste because they just turn glossy underwater.
That's my exact thought. I'd like to actually see like a comparison video of like a jerkbait right next to it, one matte, one regular. Do they look that different?
Imagine if you had
Or
an
is
aquarium.
I do have an aquarium, but I have a turtle in it. I don't know if he would appreciate me snatching a 110 through there. I do have a pool though. That's what we should do. We should do that when it gets warm out here, but it's negative 300 in Wisconsin right now. All right, let's transition. Let's go. We've already done enough sexiness, enough talk about pretending like me and Brandon Polinick are good buddies, and then whatever else. Let's talk about jigs, man. So the reason I wanted to talk to you about jigs specifically, Rich, is when I first started listening to you, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, a couple episodes, you were doing a pretty deep dive on jigs and whatever. And I've always, I've thrown jigs. I think a jig was the first lure I ever used on a bait caster where I actually caught a fish on it. And it was just such a cool, like, oh my gosh, very like skies open moment, like that jig bite. And I've been, really into them since then, but I wouldn't say it's my number one strong suit. And a lot of the things you were bringing up on those podcasts, I was like, whoa, this dude's like, pretty thought through, pretty intentional, pretty next level with it. Tell us, what do you know about jigs? How long you been fishing jigs? What are some of your favorites? Walk us through setups, all the juice, dude. Lay it on us, brother.
And I do think jigs can be a barrier or a mental block, or like, I think there can be intimidating for newer anglers sometimes. Okay. So I do understand. And I was definitely there when I was like, 12, 13, 14, I was way more comfortable flipping a salt craw or a tube or something. Like I had way more confidence and felt like I got way more bites. And like, it took me a while to really gain confidence in the jig. Once I did, I quickly loved it. Right. Yeah, so I do understand that there is this like period where like it feels like it doesn't get as many bites, and that's not always the case. There are some times when a Texas rig will outperform a jig. So there are those times, but day in and day out, the jig gets bit. It gets you a slightly bigger bite sometimes. Yeah, totally. And I think the bigger thing for me, and why I love it, is its efficiency. In that a Texas rig, right, like a pit boss or a sweet beaver or whatever your brush shot, right? Like if you think how many times, if the bite's actually decent, how many times you're fixing a Texas rig and re-rigging a worm and biting it down and fixing the hook, right? Like you're, I don't know, wasting at least 100 casts a day. Maybe, I don't know like what the number is, but like if you think about it, right? There is downtime with a Texas rig that if you properly rig up a jig, the downtime with a jig is much less. Plus the hooking percentage on a jig is better. I mean, they're both pretty good. But like jigs, like the hookups are really good. The landing percentage is really good. The average bite is a little better. I like that you can mix and match colors and like tone them up and tone them down with the trailer. So that's kind of the why. And so like when the bite is really good, I mean, I'll flip head to head with anybody on a Texas rig, and like in the end of the day, I'm gonna win. Like I feel like, right? Like if all things equal, if we're on the same quality of fish or the same, like, or even like if we're both at the front of the boat, or we're taking turns every time front to back or something, like the jig's gonna win. And like if you compare it to like a Senko, like say you're boat dock fishing, a Senko will probably catch more of the fish, but it is so much slower to fish, right? Like you cannot blow down a set of docks as fast with a Senko as you can with a jig, right? Like you're just more efficient, things like that. Yeah. So when the bite's tough, sometimes you gotta fall back to the wacky rig, right? Like there's just times that they bite it better, they're pressured, whatever. And recognizing that as part of jig fishing is like when to put the jig away is almost as important as when to roll.
No doubt. It's hard.
And, yeah, for sure.
But when it's good, like I can fish 100 docks a day and you can only fish 50 with a Senko. So like I'll take those odds any day. The other thing I like about a jig is like a Senko, like I'm going to throw it in there. It's going to fall. I might lift it a couple times, fall, right? But like there ain't much to do with that Senko between that water between you and the boat, right? Like I can swim that jig back. I can twitch it. I can like I can swim a jig. I can flip a jig. I can like hop it. rip it, right? Like there's a lot of things you can do especially when you're testing new water. I can like really cover a lot of water, right? I can like flip it or lay down, work it slow. I can, swim it by the next lay down. I can cast it at the next pad clump. I can swim it through some like I can do a lot of things really fast, especially when I'm testing new water. And that's some of the things I like. So like what is my go-to like normal jig? Here's the jig box.
Okay, let's see
in the sleigh mist typically. And so it's largely Bass Tech Jigs, which I don't really talk about this, but I am co-owner of Bass Tech Jigs.
Whoa, dope.
Don't really push that, so it might be a surprise, but so that is the main jig like that I use. So I mean the packaging is nothing flashy, like intentionally, but they're all tungsten and they're an Arky style kind of flipping jig, kind of a modified Arky. So this is a 3/8. It's got a pretty small head.
Okay, now when you say Arky, I know what you're talking about. Some people may not though. What is Arky style head? That's a sick looking skirt though. Daggum.
So it's a flattened. I don't know what. I mean, I don't know how to. I guess I'm so accustomed to the Arky. I don't know really how to like explain what an Arky jig is. It's definitely a little bit flat and rounded. It's definitely not. It's
like
not a cone like a J-Mac or your typical swim jig, right? It's not a football jig. It's definitely somewhere halfway between a football and a grass cone swim jig, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good description.
Vertical line tie. It comes with rattles. It's a tied skirt. Even though it's got rattle bands, it's actually wire tied underneath that. A moderate weed guard, and then the 3/8 one comes with like a pretty, a solid 4/0 hook.
It's got to be at least a 4. It looks pretty big.
Jig,
yeah.
Or a braid to leader type jig. It's not a 7'6" heavy action 65-pound braid jig. You will flex this hook, but this is more of a fluorocarbon jig for me.
Yeah, that's a sick jig. What's that color called?
That's an Okie Craw, so it's black, green pumpkin, blue.
That's really sharp.
So that's something I'll throw in a little bit dirtier. And I basically throw this. I throw a little bit of black and blue, but I'll typically go to that Okie Craw. The other color I throw a ton of is this black, brown, green pumpkin, which is pretty natural.
Yeah.
It's got some, black, brown, green pumpkin. It's pretty self-explanatory. Those are probably the two. I mean, I will throw a Magic Craw a little bit in clear water. I mean, honestly, we keep it pretty simple. I think we've got like 8 or 9 colors. We're there's Magic Craw, very similar to what Nate's holding up there. There are companies like Dirty Jigs, awesome jig company, but they have got like 37 colors of black and blue.
Yeah, they really do. Yeah, it's insane.
One color of black and blue. And we have an Okie Craw. Like there's a Missouri Craw, a Crawdad. I mean, we keep it pretty simple. My philosophy is I don't want to carry like 400 different colored jigs.
Yeah.
I'm going to like spice it up and down with, different trailers, right? Like if I want it to be lighter, I'll put a watermelon chunk on it. Or if I want it to be more natural in the middle, I'll put green pumpkin or pumpkin seed. If I want it, I'll go black and blue or black neon. If I want, more contrast in dirtier water. So I will adjust a little bit within reason with the jig, but then a lot of it's the trailer that I'm adjusting for the watercolor.
What's the bait? Yeah, what's the bait? What's the trailer? What's your go-to?
Well, I can't tell you guys that.
I was like, really? Okay.
Now, where is? No, I grabbed them. For real.
Uh-oh.
There should be. This is a great YouTube podcasting gold here, where I literally thought it was sitting here, but now
we just cut our hats into visors too. So I mean, it's all good.
I'm gonna stand up and look over the.
I know. I think my go-to, Jordan. I don't know what yours is, but my go-to, like chunk style trailer is the Reaction Innovations Petite Twerk.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
Why I don't know. Right? Yeah. Why I don't know. I think the size and the action, and the colors, like those three, that combination of the three, I just absolutely love. It's the petite twerk, but it's not a super small trailer. It still has, wide enough craws that flap around, and I don't know. That's been my go-to for quite a while. That, and then like if I want some more action, I'll throw a Rage Crawl, which is what this one is here.
Rage Craws are great. Yeah. My go-to is the Rage Menace. I just think the Menace is awesome, and it just works great. And if I'm in really, really, really clear water, one of my secret little juicy things for jigs is I won't split the pinchers open. I'll just keep them together, so there's a little less movement on it. Because in really clear water, especially if it's cold, I like a little less movement. Warmer water, I like bigger appendages, a little more movement. The Rage Craw's dope for sure. I'll use like stuff that's not necessarily trailer specific, like a D-bomb, or hack off some, 1.5 inch of brush hog or something like that. Something a little ugly or a little more like, look at me. But that's not
for sure.
But for sure, the Rage Menace is my go-to. I have however many colors of those in the boat, and I agree with Rich. I like to for the longest time, my brain was so OCD, and I think it's because of doing graphic design stuff, that if I had a green pumpkin jig, I wanted a green pumpkin trailer, and if I had a black blue jig, I wanted a black blue trailer, or if I was feeling real cute, like that blue sapphire trailer, but it had to match. And then after a while, I would experiment with trailers that didn't match even a little bit, so if I had like a jujitsu or whatever, like that War Eagle Jason Christie thing, then I would throw like a white-ish color Menace on it or something that didn't match at all. Like if I had like that black and like chartreusey one, I'd throw and in my brain it kind of hurt, but I would find myself getting bites on it, especially in kind of like tannic water or stained water or whatever. It worked really well, and so I'm not as married to the matching as I used to be.
All right. Well, I know if I left it in the boat or what, but I grabbed like my arsenal bag full of trailers for full effect. Was going to be like, see, it's all this stuff to like show, right? But one of the mainstays is the Menace Scrub.
Menace Scrub.
Killer.
And that's kind of a newer Strike King, the regular size Menace Scrub.
Yep.
It gets bit. I usually break the pinchers apart. You can bite it down and shorten up if you want. It comes in a lot of good colors. It skips really well. I like trailers that are both good flipping and swimming trailers. So that when I'm testing and like I want to I'm a big boat dock fisherman. I love fishing boat docks. I never met a boat dock that I didn't like for the most part. But the same applies for wood and pads and things. I wanted something that looks good on the vertical fall.
Yeah.
Something that looks good like a craw dragging across the bottom, and also something that like when I swim it has a nice bluegill kick profile. Like so I can do all those things with a typical flipping jig. I mean, there are times if the swim jig bite is really on, I will go to a swim jig. But there are a lot of bonus fish that can be picked up swimming a jig when you're flipping or pitching a jig around cover.
1,000,000%.
And things like that. Yep. So the Menace Scrub, for the most part, I'm bringing it flat like this, right? So the kickers are parallel to the water, I guess, or perpendicular to the hook and the weed guard. A couple reasons there, right? Is I guess the Menace Scrub not so much, but like it'll keep the jig a little flatter and less roll. So the less roll you get, the less likely you're going to hook stuff. And then a little bit the wider the trailer is, the more it's going to deflect off things. So it should help it come through cover a little better, keeping the trailer or the craw, whatever your style is, your beaver in that orientation will help it deflect off cover a little bit. Less likely. If you think you're coming through a bunch of reeds, right? The more that thing does this, the more likely you're going to hook a reed. If you can keep it flat and keep it like bumping like this, the less likely you're going to hook a reed, right? I mean, it's not perfect, but like anything you can do is going to help there. So that's way up there, half and half with. And then the other one that gets a lot of love from me, I had some right here somewhere. Hooked on a jig here is a speed craw. Just the old
Zoom speed craw.
Ultra Vibe Zoom speed craw gets a lot of love. A lot of the same principles. It's got a little bit more subtle action. It moves a little less water. A little more craw profiled. But yeah, I would say like day in and day out, it's the speed craw and the Menace Scrub in the same thing. They get bit. They're not, they're compact, so they skip really well. They get in and out of grass, in and out of pads, in and out of docks really well. So those are the two like bread and butter jig trailers that I throw, those two account for 89%.
Yeah.
The other one that I like when I want a little more bulk, one that I've been kind of dabbling with is the Chunky D.
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Yeah. Yeah.
is this the Chunky D or is this? Yeah, I think this
Yeah,
one's
it is.
called.
Yeah, you can see the you can see the little
Yeah.
arms on it. That's it. Yep, for sure. That's definitely the Chunky D.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chunky D.
Yeah, not to sound too weird, but Nate and I love the Chunky D.
Yeah, I can see that about you
Caught
Yeah.
a lot of fish on the
Caught a
Chunky
lot of
D.
small
D.
jaws
Now
with the
there-
swing head on the Chunky D, but yeah.
Yeah. So when I want to, like, especially in the fall, I'm fishing a little bit bigger bite, or I just want to go a little bigger bite, that is one that I'll throw. And then another one that I don't probably have handy, if I really want to bulk up and move some water, is the spicy beaver.
Oh yeah, that's a killer.
I will
Yeah.
mix that in if I really like. I'll go to a bigger half-ounce jig and move some water, the spicy beaver. And there are times that I'll put a regular beaver on there, and there's other things. Probably my third favorite trailer in the world is whatever I scrounge out of my bait pile in the boat. Like
Yeah.
when I'm just out fun fishing, like
Yeah.
be real,
Yep.
like whatever tore up craw, brush hog, beaver, whatever, where I like, pit boss, whatever, that the head's torn out from a Texas rig,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna just clip it off, right, and then thread that on as a jig trailer. When I'm out fun fishing and just pre fishing and practicing, like that's a ton. I'm reusing those baits and recycling them off the bottom of the boat. So like, don't get
Makes
all in your
sense.
head that you got to have all the things, but when you're like really trying to catch the bass of a lifetime, or fishing against your buddies, or in your little club tournament, or fishing the Bassmaster Open, go with your confidence baits for
Totally.
sure.
Yeah.
So the 3/8 ounce and half ounce flipping jigs, the Bass Tech, are mainstays. I'm fishing those, a lot of it is skipping docks. So my dock skipping setup is a Dobbins Extreme 705 weir. Look at that. It's got a
There it
Bass Tech
is.
jig with a speed crown.
With
So
speed.
that's weird.
Yep.
Who would have thought? So Daiwa
You weren't
Tatula
lying.
SV is kind of
Yep.
my reel of choice.
Yeah. Awesome reel.
I mean, this is not a cheap setup. I'm not lost on that. This is not your Walmart Dixie,
Mhm.
Combo here, Academy, like $100 combo. Like this is right. This is like a $360-$70 rod with a $270 reel or something like
Yeah.
that. But
275,
this is
something like
something
that.
I
Yep.
do a lot of, right? So I'm
Sure.
willing to invest because this rod is in my hand a lot, right? Typically has 20 or 22-pound fluorocarbon, probably something like Sniper or Invisix or something like that, a high quality fluorocarbon, 7-foot mag heavy. So 705, that's a 7-foot even 5 power. And Dobbins calls it a mag heavy. It's really not that heavy. Like their ratings, if you're a Loomis kind of guy, like a 5 in a Dobbins is closer to a 4 in a Loomis, if that makes
Okay.
sense. But
Sure.
the Dobbins all have enough tip for skipping and things like that. So I'm a big fan of this for in close, bushes, laydowns, close up pads, things like that. Like this is my go-to combo.
Okay.
Um,
You said it was 7 foot, right?
Yeah, 7 foot even. So
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
go-to because like I'm like almost 6'2", so like skipping with a 7-foot rod is not a big deal for me. Obviously, adjust to yourself. If you're like 5'3", a 7-foot rod's probably a bit much to be like skipping. Like you might want to drop down to a 6'10" or 6'8" or something maybe.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
comfortable. I can still skip with like a 7'4" pretty comfortably. So I will rock like my two other jig rods that I fish quite a bit is the Dobbins 745. And this typically is a little bit more my casting rod or more pitching, more grass, like not less skipping. I will skip with it in a pinch. And then also the Dobbins XP 744 is actually, their midpoint price range rod. Hits just as hard as the 745 because it's their jig special rod. So I like both of those rods a lot for just flipping grass, pad edges, things where I don't have to like slip the bait under something.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, almost all of those are going to be like 7-to-1, 8-to-1 reels, 17 to 22-pound fluorocarbon type setups. I'm not a big braid to leader guy for casting, that type of thing. I've just never gotten comfortable with it. If you like it and it
Same.
works for you, awesome.
Yeah.
That's not me.
Yeah.
So that's my standard flipping casting jig, right? That'll be everything from fishing deep weed lines, offshore kind of light rock stuff, flipping trees. I mean, like kind of that whole like 1 to 15-foot style do everything jig. I'll also swim it and do things.
Okay.
At times I will go to a more of a grass, like up where I live, I will go to a grass jig. So Bass Tech does have a more true grass style jig in both a 3/4 and a 1 ounce. We only make the heavier sizes.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a screw lock on it, so like you can really lock a bait on there.
I hate putting screw locks on, but they work so freaking good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because this is something you're going to be like constantly like snapping, ripping. Like you need, like if you don't have like that, back to that efficiency thing. If you don't got something like that locks the jig trailer on, you're eliminating the purpose. I like a baby D bomb. It's something I got a lot of confidence in on. So this is something typically when I'm flipping grass, right? I want rate of fall. I want something that zings down there. So I don't want something with a lot of kicking, a lot of reaction. I want something that's got a pretty slim profile to like get down. So like this baby D bomb, smaller beavers, things like that. They don't have a ton of appendages. I'm not going to put a flapping hog or a chigger craw or something like that. I want something that like gets down real quick.
Yep.
This I'll throw. You know, I might throw this on the 744, 745. I might bump up to like a 795. It's typically going to be still for most of the time. I'm still going 20, 22 pound fluorocarbon. I'm not a big braid guy playing grass, but definitely people do like that. If I'm going to in heavy enough stuff where I need braid, I will usually jump to an actual punch rig, right? Like something with a 3/4 ounce tungsten weight and a straight shank hook type scenario. But for like the more sparse, deeper grass type stuff, this also is a pretty good reed jig. Like this one will come better through the reeds than my traditional archy jig. So like flipping reeds and cattails and like that kind of stuff, I will use this 3/4 ounce tungsten jig quite a bit.
That's awesome.
We only make this in 2 colors, really Okeechobee craw and black blue green pumpkin. We've kept it really simple. Like
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Do dabble a little bit with a football jig. So here's one that I've actually hacked the weed guard off. It comes with a weed guard, but in this one's I've actually like trimmed. But like a speed craw is probably my number one. This is kind of like what I would call my smally cut. I'll trim the weed guard way back.
Sure.
They do come with more of a full, skirt on them. I'm not a huge football jig guy. I will dabble with it. I know some people just love it. But nothing super fancy, but that's a 1/2 ounce tungsten. For that, I will use that same 745 rod. Typically I will drop down to more like, 12 to 16 pound line for a football jig. I really don't, I want a little more movement, typically a little more open water. I usually try to downsize to kind of match the cover there a little bit.
Are you when you throw a football jig, are you more of like a dragger or like a stroker or both?
Probably more of a dragger. Yeah. Okay. Like hop it a little bit, drag it, but particularly
but not like the big like
rocks
whap, and then like count back down like whap, like those big hard lifts.
You see that a lot on like down south ledges and stuff like that.
I picked that up when I lived in Texas. Dudes would do this technique where they pull it up to their shoulder, like that was this thing, and then you reel back down to it, and pull it up to your shoulder at quick, reel back down to it, whatever they call it, stroking. But I don't know.
It's probably a good way to get bit off by a pike up here.
Yeah, that happens a lot here. Yeah.
So I'm not a football jig aficionado. I do mix it in a little bit. The other jig that I kind of play around with now, because I will give my flipping jigs a finesse cut, but I have been dabbling around with the Horseshoe Custom finesse jigs.
Sure.
Good old AJ, right? Yeah. So like his Mendy Magic, it's just a ball head jig. This one is lead. He does some nice hand tied skirts, different.
He's a monster.
And for these, like Speed Craw, Baby Z Craw, and Baby Pit Boss are kind of the trailers I've been using on this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so he's got a handful of, natural. That's actually a football jig. I don't know where that got in there, but like there's his little bluegill, right? Just a little more finesse. This is probably more for a smally jig, a rock jig. Like I use this quite a bit, like flipping boat docks around Grand Lake, boulders up on Lake Vermilion, dabbling with this around smallmouth. So I mean, I don't carry like a zillion jigs, but I do fish jigs quite a bit. And I kind of keep it simple. Like it's 2 or 3 colors of 2 or 3 styles and a handful of trailers. And yeah, get after it for the most part.
Yeah, that was awesome so far already. Like that was everything you just said was like so much information, but really like chewable, honorable. It was edible for people, I think. The one question I wanted to ask you, Rich, is if people are not as familiar with jig yet, and like you said, there is a little, I think, a little bit of, I don't know, fear, trepidation, worry, throwing a jig the first time. How would you tell somebody to ease into chucking a jig?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting with like a finesse jig makes it a little easier, right? I think anything you do to downsize it a little bit can help. I will say on the finesse jig, I will throw a slightly different rod, right? I'm not throwing a mag heavy. I'll drop down to like a 744 or a 4-power Dobbins rod, or maybe even a 3-power to throw like that. And then that'll typically drop down to like 12 to 16 pound line. So more similar to what I would throw a football jig. I'll throw those finesse jigs on. Pretty much all of them 7-to-1 reels. I don't like for jig. You're not ever like working the jig with a reel, so I want something that like takes up line fast if I need to catch up to a fish.
Right.
But tips for getting into it, I would say go with a little bit smaller jig. Like lighter jigs, I think are a little easier to wrap your head around when you start.
Sure, that makes sense.
Keep the trailers compact. Maybe pair it up with something that you already have. Right, if you already have confidence in a speed craw or a menace scrub or a pit boss or something like that, maybe like go with the smaller version or a beaver, right? Put that as your jig trailer. Like that'll help you mentally like be like halfway in. Start with a few colors, black and blue, green pumpkin. It's about all you really need to get started. Few natural color trailers. And it doesn't hurt to go to places there's fish, right? And like if you already know you're catching them, casting a a chigger craw or a tube or whatever, like mixing in a jig in those areas is a good way to get bit. Go into lakes where there's a lot of fish, right? Stack the odds in your favor. That's good for just about anything, like to gain confidence. So like that same advice applies, if you want to learn chatterbaits or you want to get confidence in a buzz bait or you want to, right? Like that stuff just applies. I mean, you're going to have to fish it. There are some people that'll say like, just go out and only have 2 rods and both of them have jigs and fish all day until you figure it out. Like that is an option. Not everybody wants to commit to that. That is a thing you can do. A lot of us, I know, we don't get to fish 400, hours a month, like 10 times a month. Like we get out once or twice. We want to like be successful, right? So like that's what keeps a lot of us out of certain things. Like that's what keeps probably most of us from throwing big swim baits and glides as much as like, I'll go out and start in the morning and I don't get a bite. Like I'd really like to catch like 5 or 6 before I go home. Like I don't really want to be the guy that does like, there's a reason we bass fish and don't musky fish, most of us, other than that, it's just, I think remembering like, hey, I'm on a pretty good bite. Now would be a good time to whip out that jig, like, and just get that bite. And a lot of times that jig bite is a little different than a Texas rig, right? Like Texas rig, sometimes I feel like the bites are a little softer. I mean, you do get the thump sometimes, but a lot of times it's like, it just gets tight. It swims off on you, and you get that with jigs too. But like jigs, it seems like on a higher percentage of the time, you're going to get that thump. You're going to get that line jump. And that's part of the allure, I think, of the jig, right? Is getting that like, bonk, and you're like, like, right?
It's not much doubt.
Yeah. It kind of makes you all tingly down there and you get kind of excited and you feel good. And you want to do that more and more and more, right? Like that's part of the fun of the jig fishing.
Okay. So if somebody doesn't know, Rich, tell us about the jig hook set.
Yeah. I mean, I am not bashful. Like when I set the hook, like I'm what you call a slackliner typically on a hook set. Like if you've watched any of my videos, like it's like drop the rod tip ever so slightly, start, and then just like
give them.
I mean, not many people like like some people you fish with them and like all of a sudden you just hear the fish flopping back there and like you got one back there. Like when I set the hook, the boat typically moves and people go, oh, you set the hook like that. Like it's not like and there's like a like sound of the rod, like
that crack,
it's not just kind of like, oh, I think I mean, so I'm there's a pretty interesting test you can do. Like, I don't think people understand how much stretch is in fluorocarbon. Like, maybe this is like when next time you guys get together, like, go like 2 or 3 boat lengths away, pitch the jig out. One of you pick up the jig and hold it in your hand, and let the other person start pull. Like work into it. Don't just but like start pulling, and then realize how like with 2 fingers. I can hold a jig like here, and I'll let Nate and Jordan swing as hard as they want, and they won't pull this jig out of my hand with 2 fingers.
That's crazy.
There's that much stretch and give between your rod and 30 feet of line that you'd be shocked at how much little pressure you're generating.
So give it to them.
Yeah.
On the hook set, if you're saying that means lay into them when you crack them.
Now, on the flip side, if you go out with a medium heavy jig rod and spool it up with 8-pound line and do that, you're going to snap the 8-pound line. So like your system's got to be balanced, right? I'm like, if you know, I'm pretty much like 15 to 20 pound plus line. So I'm set up to like, right.
Give them the
only time that really adjusts is like, if I am in my jig is like, I know I'm over a bar and around a cable. And like, then there are times that I'll like kind of lean into them and try to like balance that out. Cause if I go full, like it's going to snap it because I'm going to like drag it across a steel bar or cable and rust it out type scenario. So, but yeah, if I know I've got direct line of sight and I'm not around something, I'm peeling on them. I'm trying to like hit them, stun them, get their heads up, and like
get them in.
Like it's not about the fight at that point. It's not the beauty and the serenity of the the fight and the whatever. It's like I'm in tournament mode typically. Like it's hand-to-hand combat. It's just like get it over with and get him in the boat as fast as possible.
Absolutely. One of my favorite fishing stories ever was when Lola and I were fishing a derby, one of her first ones with me ever, and she had never thrown a jig, and I knew that day where we were is on Miller Dam in Wisconsin. I knew the jig. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like any lake, it's hit and miss, but when it's on, it can be really, really fun. And I knew the jig was going to play at some point. Didn't know if it'd be the thing, but anyway, we got to this one little section, and I caught I don't know what it was, 2.5, 3 on a lay down. And we moved down, and I told her to come up on the front of the boat. And, I'd been kind of coaching her like, hey, when you get a bite on a jig, you're going to know it's going to feel like a boom, boom, but you're going to see your line move or jump a little bit, like reel down to it, step your foot back and just give them. And I mean, I was like a dad watching his kid walk for the first time or something. Like she got a bite, she reeled down one. I mean, just laid into this thing. And it was about a 3 or so, pulled it out from under a log, boat flipped the thing. And I mean, I think it was like, I don't know.
If I didn't know for sure, I know for sure now.
Yeah, that was exactly right. I'm like, dude, I'm so glad that I'm married to you and somebody else isn't, because this is amazing. Like, it was just such an exciting, and she was super pumped. And that jig bite, you're exactly right. That jig bite is a different style of bite. It's a different, like, it's a different rev you up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always tell people it's sort of like gun hunting for deer. Like, that's cool. That's really fun. But when you bow hunt a deer for the first time, that level of excitement's higher because it's just a different thing. A jig bite, when it's a no doubter and you reel down on it and step back, and then who was that Cobb that caught that, whatever it was, 10 something on that, was that a jig bite or a flipping bite? I can't remember.
It was sight fishing. I'm not sure exactly. It was,
but I mean, it was that step back and sets the hook and the rod doesn't really come up with you, because oh my gosh, it's just, I mean, it's the best feeling in the world. It's something unique. It very much is. The tug is the drug. And it's like, yeah, like you said, let's go do that again. Like, that was too dope. I want to do that again.
You don't get that with a Ned rig.
You do not get that with does anybody throw a Ned rig anymore? I was just thinking about that. Does anybody throw the Ned? Is the Ned dead? Is that even a thing?
I mean, I think it's definitely a co-angler weapon, and there's definitely times and places for the Ned.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like drop shot and jig head minnow. It just doesn't really seem like.
I feel like the live scope has made the net a little less effective for sure.
Indeed, it has. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I haven't thrown it in a long time. Well, I guess I threw it 2 years ago, Nate, up in Lac de Flambeau. But even then, though, I was throwing kind of a mag Ned, but it was still a little different. But
I caught a couple fish on the Mississippi River, kind of blind fishing beds on a Ned.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Okay,
like that's a pretty deadly.
Yeah. Like, do you want me to bleep that out when we put this episode live? Okay, I didn't know. You got to look on your face like, dang it, I shouldn't have said that. Nate, you got any other questions for Rich on jigs? Because this is some juicy juice right here.
Yeah, maybe just a couple quick ones. You kind of talked about, the jigs you fish, setups, rod, reels, line, all that stuff. What about like modifications? Are you a weed guard
that's a big
trimmer?
one.
Are you a skirt trimmer? Do you flare the skirt? What sort of stuff do you do?
Yeah,
to
do you
kind of
uneven the skirt trim?
Yeah, what kind of stuff
I mean,
you do?
it does seem like the more a jig gets chewed on and the less the rattier the skirt gets, the better. Like, right?
Yeah, it
Like,
does.
I feel like swim jigs, chatterbaits, that all applies. It kind of depends, right? Like, there are definitely times we kind of touched on this, right? That like I will, like, here's a football jig that I've definitely trimmed down.
Mm-hmm.
At the time I felt like I needed a smaller, less aggressive package. Typically, like a new jig out of the package, right? Just walk through this, pop it out. That's the 1/2 ounce. This has got the 1/2 ounce has got a 5/0 hook on it, so I don't really trim that one too much. I want to see if I have a 3/8 ounce handy here.
You ever
Super
throw mop
organized.
jigs at all, Rich?
Not really, no.
No, I don't really either. I have a few and I rarely throw them. I feel like I don't really know when I should throw them versus regular jigs. I just don't really F with them.
So yeah, the 3-ounce jig, like I'll take it out and I'll kind of like, right, sitting in a package, they'll get a little, so I'll kind of feather it out, make sure everything's loose on it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I will take, right, and maybe even that out, trim that up. There are times I'll come in there and like make it uneven and shorten it out just to give it a little more ragged look. If I want it to be even more finesse, right, I'll take the upper half and then cut that off to give it like the more finesse cut, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll take and I mean, if I feel like the bite is on and we're catching 3-4 pounders and they're just eating it, like I'm just gonna take this out and just like pull the skirting, right, get it ready to put a jig. I will a lot of times. One of the things I like to do is like V the weed guard.
Okay.
So I'm not a big fan of like fanning the weed guard out, but I kind of V it. And so what that does is just make the weed guard a little wider. That goes back to that thing where like it's just a little more likely to like deflect off, right? Like,
sure.
Right, you're just trying to create enough space for just to slip by the hook, right? Most of the time we're not like if something mashes down on the weed guard's not strong enough, right? On a lot of these jigs, at least the jigs. So I typically just kind of V it out to give myself a little bit, and then there's obviously nothing in the way when you go to set the hook because that hook pops through there. So I will trim the skirt depending on the situation. A lot of times the speed craw, I'm kind of like, right, like I'm kind of taking that top little section off there. I pretty much everything I do, I thread on there.
You don't ever just dangle like a chunk in the bend of the hook.
Rarely. I mean,
yeah,
like
I used to do that a lot. I don't do it anymore either.
Whatever, but
yeah.
So there is this little thing that I use a lot. Probably like nobody's listening at this point. Everybody stop. Like we can talk about
for
things.
sure.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
nobody's.
Yeah. It's not live. We
Nobody's
can bleep
made
you
it
out.
this far.
Yeah.
So there's this product called the Jig Sling. It used to be made by Vertical Lures, but it's like this little, like you slide it up on there and then you put your trailer on, and then that thing like.
Okay.
What?
So
interesting. Yeah.
I do that to
I've
block
never
my
seen
jig
that.
trailers on.
I haven't either.
And
Yeah.
so I've got a pile of them, but basically you got a little hole there. You thread on right under your skirt, and then you pull that tab around.
Yeah, that
and
makes
that
sense.
locks your speed craw, your meniscra, whatever you want on there. So that's back to one of my like making my jig trailers last longer, get more efficiency. Like now I can probably catch, as long as a small bass or a pike or a bluegill doesn't tear one of those off, like that thing will last me a long time, and I'm not fixing it. So like
that's dope.
I can just keep skipping, ripping it through grass, and that stays perfect.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. So you're not a super glue guy, or?
I mean, if I didn't have those, I would consider super gluing, but super glue is messy and
I hate doing
dries
super glue
up
stuff.
when you need it last, and like
yeah, that's good. And you don't ever trim your weed guard, or you do? I know you said you V it, but you don't ever trim it.
Yeah, I mean, most of my jigs are like not right.
Super,
Like they're
yeah.
pretty much. If you push down, that weed guard hits at the barb, and that's
Mhm.
about where you want it. So like,
Yeah, that's
there are
good.
definitely some jigs that the weed guards come a little over the top,
Yeah,
and
they're
they could use a
long.
little trimming. But I guess I designed this jig the way I want it, so I guess I don't have to trim the weed guard. So
Yeah. How was that
yeah, like
process?
that one's got a much more
Yeah, that's
aggressive
a
weed guard on it,
way
and I
long
would
weed
probably
guard.
trim that back a little bit,
Yeah,
depending on what I was doing.
I used to always, like, no matter what jig it was, I would grab it out of the package, and this was like when I first started, so maybe 4 years ago throwing jigs. Uh, but I would always cut it at like a 45. Like, I just thought, I don't know why, but I would cut it. I would cut the weed guard at a 45. I don't remember where I saw that or what, but I thought
I feel like
that
that's
was the
something Denny
deal.
Brower told us one time.
Yeah.
Maybe,
So,
yeah. So
but he
I'd
doesn't know a
kind of
lot
flatten it
about
out.
jigs, so
Not a lot about flipping in general. Yeah.
or black blue.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's dope. Let me ask you this, Rich, kind of a abstract question. If there's two styles of fishing, you have to pick two styles of fishing to do for the rest of your life, like lure, umbrellas. Is jigs one of them?
Probably. I mean, like, what is the criteria? Is it just for enjoyment, or is it like
Yeah, I don't
tournament
know. Like
success,
if
or
yeah,
like do I have to
yeah.
survive on these
Yeah,
fish?
I'm
Like
not
what?
sure. Just for enjoyment. You just like doing it.
Like if I could catch them these two ways, and these are the only, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna still catch them, right? Like
Yeah, that kind of deal.
probably flipping a jig and throwing a frog.
Okay. That's hard to argue with. Those are both
I mean,
really good.
scoping a minnow. No, wait, no, it's the
Jig head and a minnow, live scope
jig head and minnow
with
and a Ned rig.
that's it.
No.
Yep, crappie minnows, crappie tubes, or crappie jigs, or whatever. I mean, whatever the
Yeah,
jig
light
head minnow came
line,
from.
4-pound line. Yeah,
Yep.
definitely all that stuff.
Get that Aaron Martin's like 3-pound fluoro and crazy stuff that you try and tie in the wind and you can't see the line while you're trying to do your FG knot.
My jig box is like 6 times the size of my Ned rig box, so
that makes sense. You have a Ned rig box?
it's like
it's like a little,
it's got like a few heads in it. It's like this big.
Yeah. I don't have a Ned rig box. I have a couple jig head like Bass Mafia terminal tackle boxes that have some Ned heads in it, and then I have like some finesse plasticky stuff, but I don't really have a Ned rig.
So for whatever reason,
per se,
I went to this instead of having like a really big like terminal coffin type thing. I've got these little like. And like, this is my drop shot terminal. This is my Ned terminal. This is my swim bait head terminal. This is my hook terminal. This is my, like, so I've just got like in my boat, I've got like this row of like 8, like, I don't know what they are, the smaller Plano type.
Yeah, that's really smart.
The little, so it works for me. And a lot of times when I'm coing, right, like I know, like I'm jumping in with somebody, I'm like, we're fishing largemouth. I grab my hook box, my weight box, maybe the swim bait heads or, a couple things. I don't always need my Ned. I don't always need my drop shot terminal. I don't always need my like Nico term, right? Like I can usually grab 3 or 4 of them, and I know that's what I can get by with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure.
Heck yeah.
You still trying to sell your boat or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about it. You like that boat? My buddy Austin. I don't know. You know Austin Howard? White
Sounds
dude,
familiar, but...
dreadlocks. He's from this area. He lives in Colorado. He guides in Florida, fishes the opens. He hasn't fished them in a couple years, but anyway, he just got a Camus. He loves it so far. But
yeah, it's been a great boat. So at the 2022 Camus 250 Merc, it's got like 230 hours on it. It's in good shape. Looks super sweet.
Yeah,
it's kind of a black and red combo. Got Raptors, got an Ultrex, got a scope. Got 3 birds on it. I mean, it's ready for any tournaments anybody would want to fish. Yeah, so
that's dope.
It's on my Facebook, on my Insta. I mean, anywhere you find it, hit me up. And if you say I definitely got a bounty, like of like $750 if somebody brings me a lead. So if you're not interested in buying a boat, but you think you can make the matchmaker and you want to make yourself $750,
I mean, $750 sounds great.
Heck yeah.
I mean, Lola, if you're watching the replay, did come many jackhammers you could buy with $750. If like somebody comes through the hair salon and you get them to buy a Camus, like,
see, Rich knows the deal. Yeah, he knows the deal because that's what you do at a hair salon. You talk to people, sell a boat for sure. Right. What are you going to do for your next rig? Do you know? Or are you not allowed to talk about it?
I mean, like at this point, we're getting to the point of the season where there's a pretty good chance I'll be running the Camus next year. Like, because I definitely have not ordered another boat. And I'm not going to be in that owning 2 bass boat kind of lifestyle.
That's wild, dude.
I know when you see me on YouTube, you think I live this luxurious life with unlimited funds from YouTube. I mean, you guys with the podcast money, you understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
How lucrative it really is.
I mean, look at the background of my shot right here. This is my garage.
Yeah.
It's very fancy.
Right. Yeah. So obviously from lead times, spring tournaments, things like that, we're kind of hitting the end here. So hopefully something happens and I can work with Intune and order another rig.
Yeah.
But if not, we'll be rocking the Camus. And like I said, it's a great boat. Love it.
Yeah.
So I'm not, this is not a Rich needs to sell a boat. Rich wouldn't mind selling his boat. And then he can, if the financials work out, we'll roll it into a new one and try to have a new rig every, 3-ish years. That was kind of my plan. And
that makes sense.
If it doesn't work out, I'm in a boat that I don't mind rocking this year at all.
Can I ask you a question that you might not want to answer?
Sure.
Would you say Camus if you sold your boat today?
Would I say Camus?
Would you stay Camus like for your next one?
If that is
like if you sold your boat right now,
I would.
Okay.
Like because my main deal is with Intune Marine, right? Like like it's a joint partnership of like what they want to do strategy wise and sell boats and marketing and that kind of stuff. So if they want to push Camus and invest, then I'd be absolutely stoked to run another Camus.
Yeah, they're pretty dope.
Yeah,
they do a lot with like Phoenix too, right?
Yeah, they're a big Phoenix dealer, big Vexus dealer.
Vexus, yeah.
Yeah,
that VXS 20 is just disgusting. I really like that boat. I'd want to put a bigger motor on it though, because I'd like to go faster than like 65, but I think it's a bad rig for sure. Anyway, you still trying to sell that Loomis rod too?
Yeah, there's a Loomis on Facebook Marketplace. Evidently, the CGX is not the
that
GCX
video you talked about. That
Loomis
CGX had me crying. I don't know why that was so freaking funny to me.
I don't know, but like that's the one thing like we talked about. Like I've really been like getting into the, I guess the vertical, shorts and TikToks and reels and that kind of stuff. And like I've just, for some reason, things have just been clicking lately where ideas are coming to me and just like whatever, it's like whatever lands on my lap. I'm like, I feel like I've been able to kind of make some content, make some stuff. So it's like I got this rod that I won as a big bass prize on the tournament I won on Minnetonka this fall, and it's like. Yeah, what's the deal?
Why? Right? This is like, a Loomis. Why can't I sell this Loomis?
Why? I've knocked $100 off retail, and I barely had like one person ask about it. What's the deal?
Yeah, that's really funny. But I also think though, like not to get all like sycophantic here, but I also think that's part of why people like you is that they know that you're not going to say something unless you mean it. So you're not. I mean, you weren't like by any means trashing Loomis or saying this, whatever. But you were just saying like. Why is this rod amongst all these other rods not selling worth a darn? You'd think people, especially in the upper Midwest, love Loomis stuff. Why is this one not? It's just an honest deal. And I think people like that about you, that you're not just a puppet or something. I dig that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it was an NRX and it was $100 off, it would have been gone a long time ago.
Also true. Yeah. NRXs are prettier. The colors are nicer and they're very light and very expensive. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I got a Dobbins Ecstasy. It's pretty sweet, but it's like,
are they making that Ecstasy still, or what's the one that they?
I mean, I like it. It's a great rod, and it's light and beautiful and sensitive, but it almost like feels like too much sometimes. Like I was like, I don't need all that. Like honestly, anything over 250, like I think there's pretty diminishing returns, regardless of what rod you're buying. Like, I'm not saying they don't get better; they don't have better components and things like that, but like, you definitely don't need a $300, $400, $500 rod to catch a bass. That's for sure. Like,
for sure,
you can be pretty competitive with a $200 to $250 combo.
Yeah, even Gussie was saying once how like the NRX Stella combo. He's like, just to be clear, that's not my normal combo. He's like, I don't have a whole boat full of those. Like even the dude who won the classic, who is one of the most respected pros on earth, even he's like, I'm not using a $1,200 combo for my normal combo. That's not, the rod locker is not stuffed full of those. So yeah, I think there's a fact to be said there.
I will say, like, I remember buddies with Josh Douglas. We used to run around quite a bit before he was, not living around here. And I remember like one time we're like out fun fishing and he's like throwing a buzzbait on like a GLX. And I'm like, what are we doing here, Josh? Like, you can see him eat it. Like, I don't need a GLX to throw a buzzbait. Like,
yeah.
Right. Like,
that's a great point. Yeah. Yeah, but it's the sensitivity of the whatever weight graphite and the titanium guides and you're like, I believe you. That's dope, dude. So anywho, Nate, you got anything else for Mr. Hellabass before we let him get out of here? Thank you for sticking around. It's kind of a longer podcast. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no, I think we hit on everything. I don't have any more questions. Rich killed it as always. We appreciate you.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Well, thank you, dude, for doing the show. We sincerely appreciate you for sure. Thanks for the new headwear. I feel like I'm looking pretty good. Yeah, I feel like I look really nice. Nate, you look really cute. You did something with that hat. You know, that wasn't a very desirable hat, but it's the first time.
That's worse. I tell you
that's the first time that hat has ever gone down to somebody's ears, Nate, because that hat is very shallow. That's a John Cox hat. Just stays shallow, but that one it's looking good now. I like it. Anyway, all right, man. We'll appreciate you. We'll hit you up later. Thanks for being on the show, man.
All right. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
All right,
Later.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Peace.
What a cool dude, man.
Heck yeah.
It's funny because I had all these questions in my brain, kind of queued up to ask him about jigs. But as he spoke, he just sort of naturally kind of covered everything that I really the one thing I wanted to ask was modifications, and then I kind of forgot, and then you jumped in with it. But other than that, he just kind of down the line, just covered everything.
Yeah, absolutely. He hit on about everything you can with jigs. He talked about materials and size and weight and hooks and colors and trailers and rod, reel, line, all the good stuff. Yeah,
I just feel like
ask for much more.
No, and that's exactly it. You can't really ask for much more. And I feel like if somebody has thrown jigs, they could learn something from everything he sort of spoke about. If somebody's never thrown jigs, I think they could really learn something. From the finesse football trimming to the weights, the colors. Even the specificity on the Rage Menace grub as a trailer, laying it. It's like if the hook comes up like this, laying it flat because it works better to skip. That's what I do too. And then if I use that Rage Menace on a swim jig, I do the opposite. I flip it sideways, so it's more of that bluegill profiles going by and little tails.
Run it vertical,
yeah, just a whole bunch of little specific things that I think made a whole lot of sense. And to me, it felt like a dude who was speaking about jigs from a place of experience. I've been doing it a while. You know what I mean? Even just the real quickness on the rod length, rod action, fluoro, the thickness of fluoro. If you're going to step back and really give them the beans, throw that 20, throw that 22, whatever. But overall, I just thought it was super useful. And I think our hats look incredible. I really wish Lola was out here. I actually brought, because originally Lola was planning on being, on this podcast tonight. She told me to tell Rich hi, which I don't know if I did or not. But I have a hat for her, my homie who made Fat Bottom Baits. This is a logo I made for him forever ago. I thought it was a little prettier color. So if she trimmed it up, it'd look good on her.
Good visor.
Yeah, it'd be a really good visor. Yeah. She has really nice hair, though, unlike you and I. So it would work out pretty well. So, Nate, you got anything else before we close up shop? That was a dope episode. Super listenable, I hope. Hopefully viewable as well, so people can see your bald head and my bald head with our visors.
Yeah, for sure. Long episode, but really well engaging. Touched on a ton of great stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
Rich, he's an awesome guest and clearly an awesome fisherman to give us all the juice.
Yeah, for sure. And if anybody's looking for a dope Camus, his rig really is dope. It's black and red. It looks super clean. It's just decked out. I always use this analogy, but it is that. It's like a skate park designed by a skateboarder. His boat is obviously laid out, put together as a tournament bass fisherman. So if you're in the market for one, it's not a bad looking rig to get into for sure. And Camuses are just clean front to back. All the years of Earl Bentz's boat building wisdom is put into those bad boys. They look good. They run good. They're slick. They're a good combination of fast, but with a big deck and just super fishable. So hit them up. At Hellabass is how you will find him anywhere. HELLABASS, or at his website, which is just his entire name, which is RICHLINDGREN.com, richlindgren.com. Other than that, you good, Nate?
That's it, man.
That's it.
All we got.
All right, give it to him.
Positivity is worth the effort. Peace.
Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in.